for lighting me soft and warm.
Yes.
Happy.
My pleasure. It's an honor. It's an honor to light you.
Thank you. It's an honor to see you working, man. To see you like figuring out this very complex exercise I designed.
Yeah, it's a setup.
Hopefully you don't ever have to do again a 4-camera cross coverage.
Listen, you never know. Everybody says one camera, then before you know it, you got 6 cameras.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
The new normal.
The new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, that was cool. That was hard though.
Did you suffer?
I suffered.
Yeah.
The whole time.
And they're filming you.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
horrible.
Yeah, and I'm like,
I'm losing all my friends. They're like, whenever she calls again, I'm not picking up.
I'm just like, who approves these edits?
You do.
Like, but you know, by the time you use 30 seconds, it's like a 10-second clip. By the time
No, we just get like, it's not only nice to see how everyone does something very different with the same tools. It's like kind of like that Lars von Trier movie,
right.
The Five Obstructions.
5 Obstructions.
Well, I also love, do you remember this Harley movie Flirt in the 90s?
Never saw that.
It was like a short, it was like the same script 3 times.
Okay.
And so it was like, once it was in Berlin, one in New York, and one in Japan.
Okay.
And it was super interesting as well, like same kind of exercise, repetition and variation.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to see not only how everyone lights it differently, but how you think differently, how you build it. What's your process of like, okay, figure out this thing first, then first, change, how you talk to the crew. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You put that mirror, because you see yourself anyway.
Yeah.
Because even when you're just watching somebody else, you ultimately feel like you're watching yourself.
Totally.
So that's the power of observing,
Yeah.
or bearing witness, I would say, just like, and that, shooting is lighting something. It's not just lighting something. There's other stuff going on that it's hard to quantify in language. It's also hard to quantify in like behavior. That's the gift. That's Allah's gift to us, is that we can like, when we see each other, we actually see ourselves. You know what I mean? And I think filmmaking, because it's so collaborative, it's really about a nanosecond. You're watching a community. First of all, you're watching little microeconomies grow.
Yeah.
And then you're watching these nation-state building, in the worst version, these nation-state building projects, but also these like intentional community projects, come into life. And so you wrestle with all the things that you would wrestle with when you're sharing space with family or friends. So to do that in like a half hour is pretty amazing, because you walk up and you're like, this is your friend, this is your new friend, y'all gonna do something.
Yeah.
And everybody, because there is like a mandate and there's an understanding, because we work, and that work, it gives us a certain level of experience, but you just never know what's gonna happen. You never know what's gonna happen. So it's
that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. And you struggle, and you have these big highs and these big lows, and it's really, how it is at this age, you start to, you understand that the highs and the lows are a part of like a bigger grace,
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning you're trying to control not to get to the lows, right? And you think like that's kind of going to be the journey. And then you're like, when you've been in the lows, you're like, okay, no, this is the journey. And this is actually an important part of the journey, because without the lows, like, you don't grow up, you don't get to really find out like who you are. No? Because it's interesting, you're talking about the observer and the creation, the community creation. It is through observing and kind of trying to figure out where is it that you are observing from, then you start to observe yourself, and you start to get to know who you are through your gaze, which is totally unconscious, of course, because you're not saying this is going to be my gaze, right? It's all really like a long journey of finding your identity, in a way, right?
Yeah, I remember AJ, some people know him as Arthur Jafa. We were talking, and he was like, man, I'm not interested in the wins, I'm interested in the loss. I really didn't understand that when he said it to me, but now I really get it. We don't all have children, but we all understand this because we were children at one point. But my children are really, you have to be super vulnerable with them. You have to really show all of it to them. You have to really show up as you are and be, truthful with them. And that's a practice. It's a practice to tell your children everything. It's a practice to show your children everything. My wife and I were always laughing, because it's like, only want to be a parent 75% of the time. You know what I mean? That other 25%, I want to be doing something completely different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just that. It's just like when you're in the low, like just understanding that there's something else at play. That shows up, I know for me, I'm sure it does for you, it shows up so much on set. In the day, I'll have too many lows to count. And it's how I get out of the lows that for me are like, that's cultural. That's a testament to my lineage. That's a testament to all these other things that, again, that are really hard. They're not tangible things per se.
Yeah.
But they show up in the process and they really bring context to, hopefully, you know,
Yeah.
that's what our ancestors really want for us, is that
Yeah.
in those moments there's context on how we handle these challenges, you know.
Totally.
Yeah, and I used to really get, and I still do sometimes when people say, oh, it's so, man, it's so wonderful because I just, you know, we're getting through these challenges, and I'm like, man, I don't really want to get through another challenge. You're like, I don't really feel like dealing with the challenge right now, but
Yeah.
it's unavoidable. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's so unavoidable. So really, it's about just being in practice on how to you know, get through them.
I love what you're saying about the kids. I don't have kids, but I see exactly what you mean about this challenge of having to be present and truthful all the time, because that's what you want them to see. That's the father that you want to be.
Right.
Just having something that gives you this kind of grounding, down to earth all the time. That mirror that is like, fuck, I'm not being, you know, authentic here.
Yeah.
I'm like playing the role that maybe my dad played with me as a dad, but I don't want to play this role.
Yep.
And just kind of like unwinding all these layers of programming or how should I be, and like trying to go back to the truth.
Yep.
What a wonderful practice. And I feel in filmmaking, in a way, like I feel my journey and your journey, even though we obviously had very strong identities as cinematographers from the beginning, but still as a human and therefore as a cinematographer, the whole journey is really about that. It's just about keep getting rid of all these layers, like how do I have to look to be allowed to be in the club?
Yeah.
How do I have to perform so for people to believe in me as a leader or whatever? So you have to put all these things, and then the real journey is as you get older and more confident, hopefully more recognized, how you can take all that shit out, like one layer at a time, and just go deeper and deeper to the core, to the heart,
To the heart, yeah.
to who you are.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done, but
It's a journey.
it's a journey.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah.
But you can't sidestep the journey. You know, you can check out. You can check out in many ways, but if you enjoy being here, it's a journey.
Yeah.
It's like every year for me is an intense revelation about what it is I'm supposed to be doing and how this filmmaking, cinematography thing plays a part. And if it's not revealed to me that it's playing a part, I'm not forcing it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to put it down and lay it to the side, because it's Bill Russell, who's, you know, amazing basketball player, but he was also an incredible activist and thinker. He was known for just letting folks know, I do more than just dribble a ball and y'all have a good time watching me dribble a ball. Like, I'm complicated. I have layers, and I always knew that about myself, but I wasn't ready to share that, you know. And now I feel like for the last few years, that's just where I am. I'm not interested in this linear thing.
Yeah.
Where, you know, you sit by the phone and wait for somebody to invite you to be a practitioner of this thing that is a gift. You know what I mean? Like, and then when you show up, somebody giving you permission to like do the thing that is a gift. You know what I mean? And so.
Inside some permission, inside some parameters as well.
Yeah. But I also do understand like what this process is about, like what collaboration is all about. Like, so in that sense, I do. I wait for the right person to call or the right questions to be asked. I interrogate all of it. Who's producing to who, you know, who's production design. Like, it's all matters. Yeah. And it's not a litmus test about people's talents. Like, it's not about that. No. It's about, you know, is this the right is it the right chemistry? You know? Do we have all the pieces that can get us to what the journey also presents, which is what we said, these surprises and these challenges. You know what I mean? Relationship that I really cherish is my relationship with production designers, you know? Like, those are really, like, it's funny. I'm checking that more these days than anything. Like, yo, who's designing? Oh man, I might have to do it. I might have to do that, you know, just because the world building I just really respect so much, you know, what production designers do, but also just because, you know, that's the person closest to me that is helping to sort of manifest this director's vision.
Yeah.
So,
And I think this is really important. I would love to start the journey from the beginning also because, you know, these series are dedicated to everyone that loves filmmaking and cinematography, but I'm especially interested with Deep Light in inspiring, you know, the people that are coming after us, the young generations. And, and I think everything you just said about being very selective with who you're working with and making sure that there's a resonance in all the important levels before taking on a project. It can sound a little bit like, well, you know, he's Bradford Young, he can choose. But I know, because I know you from a long time, and I know that you and I have always done that from the first short film we've made.
right.
And we have very different careers, of course, but the one thing that makes us feel like we're brother and sister is
Yes.
that we've been quite loyal in a way to that vision of how we wanted to build our journey as cinematographers, as humans, and as filmmakers in the service of humanity in a way, right? Like what stories we tell, how we tell them, why do we tell them, why are we gonna like put all this gift or these months of our life on telling this, and the responsibility that comes with what story you choose to tell.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about the beginnings and how it was possible to do that from the beginning when you probably didn't have money to eat, and you know people is like, no, but you have to take everything. At the beginning, you know, there's always this question, you know, with students, like, do you just select or do you take everything? And there's always different voices, and I would love to hear your voice about it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to a friend, somebody we both know and really love and adore. I was talking to Violin about this today.
Yeah.
And as you were talking, it reminded me, I can't remember which documentary about DPs it's in. Maybe it's cinematographer. There was one, anyway, there's one of them where they're talking to Storaro. And Storaro's like, being Storaro, just being, you know, beautiful poetic descriptions of like his lighting and what he does. And he was just really being very assertive about his prerogative as a cinematographer and the choices he makes and the choices he's making now and the choices he made when he first came to the US from Italy. And then they cut to Stephen Burnham. And Stephen Burnham just like, well, of course he can say that, he's Storaro.
Yeah.
And then they immediately cut back to Storaro, and Storaro says, but I've always been Storaro. And then he says, then he's like, and I'm paraphrasing because he says, you know, I've always been Storaro even when I first came to this country with like, again, paraphrasing, like $50 in my pocket and three kids.
Yeah.
I laughed because it was the kind of rebuttal that I like to see, where it's like, yeah, I've always been me, you know what I mean? And in that, it just felt like, oh, okay, even the OGs of the game have, you know, as much as we hold them on these pedestals and they're wonderful, you know, communicators with light and shadow. The thing that I think we connect to with all of them is that they've always been themselves, you know what I mean? Unapologetically themselves, and that's what shows up in the image. That for me is like anecdotal of like, when you get to that certain level, you know, that level we always talk about, that, you know, you always have to show up as yourself, I believe, you know. So I hope the takeaway for young people is that, and for us, even for our peers, like, always show up as yourself. I always use this Ramadan metaphor. I always say I have friends. Certain cats used to call me and always be, man, how did you get that film? Or how did that work out? And I'm not getting the scripts. I'm not getting the things that I want to, you know, I'm not necessarily shooting the things I want to shoot. And again, I've had that journey. Just recently I had that journey. So it's not like because I'm selective or I've always like tried to bring myself to the table that I don't have challenges, you know, in the process of like choosing projects or projects coming to me. But I didn't say this to him in my mind. I was like, what's the answer I want to give this brother? And I was like, you know, it's like Ramadan. You're in this moment with your body and your creator, and you're fasting, and your senses are like high, and things are coming to you in ways that they don't come to you when you're not, when you're feeding your body and not necessarily feeding your spirit. You know, there has to be like a balance there. So when you're fasting and you're just in the word and you're feeding your spirit, you're just at this level, you know, and you're just buzzing, and things are just coming to you, and you're receiving all of these things. Your antenna's up, and it just feels so fulfilling, and you feel full in a way that you're not necessarily going to feel full the same. You won't feel the same way when when it's just about sustenance. It's a different kind of sustenance. And the worst thing you can do when you have that buzz and you're feeling that connection with the Creator is break your fast. First of all, break your fast before it's time to break your fast, and then break your fast with McDonald's.
Yes.
Okay? And so a lot of cats be breaking their fast with McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then in Islam, we call it the ummah, and the community sees you breaking your fast with McDonald's. Most cats are like, okay, he broke his fast with McDonald's. Yeah, you got this, bless him. Mashallah. They be like, oh, mashallah. But some cats in the corner like, man, why is he breaking the buzz with McDonald's? And they see you. And so the next time they see you, they're looking at you like, look at him. Look at them. They're in the zone, but then they kind of lower the spirit. This like formal detox by like putting garbage in their body. And that's how I look at careers.
Yeah.
It's like, we need to fast. We need to open up our whole body, our mind, and our spirit, and we need to stay on that track. And when we decide to come out of that, we need to be doing it with nutrition, with things that are feeding our spirit and feeding our souls, because this work we're doing, even though we don't like it and we don't like to commit to it, and I don't like to admit it a lot of times, it's feeding people. Like Sinners this year is the nutrition.
Yeah.
That was the nutrition. It was packaged in a way that, I'm not trained to understand, but Ryan is completely trained to understand. So I submit to the will of that knowledge he has. I'm like, it's not the package I understand, but there's nutrition here. And it's a testament that when you bring real intention, that it's received, and it's received by many, not just that small little fraction of folks that you think will understand. The journey of the film is a testament to how it was received. So I've always worried, because for me, I went to a film school, and I was trained by somebody that required intention from us first before good images. And I'm sorry, it's a long answer, but like when I went to film school, I was 18 years old, and my mother had just passed away. I was 17 when I got there. No, I was 18 by the time I got there. I come from a wonderful family, so I wasn't in danger of like creating danger for myself, but you never know. And so when I went to school, I was looking for community, and I found this old man, Mr. Haile Garima, who swept us all up off our feet at 18 years old and showed us all these films that I was never going to see if I didn't go to Howard. And a lot of the films that I saw growing up completely compromised my humanity. They made me hate my mother. They made me hate the way my mother looked. They made me hate myself. Oh. They made me hate Africa. They made me hate my people, But I didn't understand that. And most American kids don't understand that. And then I finally see a film like Nothing But a Man, or Harvest 3000, or Bush Mama, or Sankofa, or Daughters of the Dusk, or Stalker, or Nostalgia, or the list goes on and on and on. You realize, oh, hold up. There's a whole universe of filmmakers that are not even interested in being in conversation with this industrial complex we call Hollywood. And the films they're making are actually, I see myself, I see my humanity, I see my mother, I see my grandmother, I see my grandmother's hands, I see my sister, I can love myself, and structurally, in terms of like the time signature, I see blackness. That was like, oh my, what's going on? And it made me, and I'm gonna come back to it, but it made me remember, I remember when we went to see School Days, Spike Lee's film. And I remember everybody in the community saying, and I come from the west end of Louisville, Kentucky. It's a small little black enclave in Louisville, Kentucky. I remember everybody saying, we gotta go support this young man. His name's Spike Lee. He's got a movie called School Days, and it's about all these kids that go to the historically black college and university. So I knew about historically black colleges and university because majority of my people in my family went to historically black college and university. So I was like, I'm curious, what is that? And I'm young, I'm not even maybe 10. And I remember going to the theater with my mom and my sisters and walking in the theater and seeing my friends on the other side of the theater and being like, oh, I'm gonna go sit with Corey. I'm gonna go sit with Thomas. And my mother's like, nah, we sitting together as a family because we're going to watch this young black man in the film he made for you.
Wow.
For you. And even now I'm like, shoo, for you. So then I go to Howard and Haile says, sit down and watch these films. These people, even though this man is from Ukraine, even though this man is from Russia, even though this film called Hour of the Furnace, which is about the revolution in Buenos Aires, okay, part 1 and 2, even though this film called The Hour of the Jackal of Nahotra from Cuba, this film Love and Lucia, this film Lucia from Cuba, all these films, these are for you. These films are for you. That little revolutionary fiery spirit you got in here, your body that you want to burn everything down, sit down, calm down, watch these films because you're not ready for that smoke. Sit down, watch Battle of Chile. Watch what it looks like to really make a sacrifice. I got my mind blown and I was like, this is a commitment. It's not just some cameras and some lenses and we're out here having fun and yes, all of that, but we have responsibility because holding the camera, because of the history, we're not only trying to have fun, enjoy ourselves and tell stories, but we're at war with a tool that's been used to dehumanize us.
Totally.
Right? So back to your question about trying to tie it in, but back to your question about, making those choices.
Yeah.
Luckily along this whole journey, I did 4 years of undergrad in film and then I did with Haile Gerima. Then Haile said, don't apply to any of these other schools. Don't go to NYU. Don't go to USC. Don't do any of that because you have no place there. You belong here with me. And these 5 other cats from undergrad, Burns, Mario, Lauren, Tracy, Rafi, all y'all are staying with me and we're gonna do something. So I stayed. And what I knew is what I knew. I didn't know about Sundance. I didn't know about applying to Sundance. I didn't know about your movie going to a film festival and getting, I didn't know about any of that. I didn't even know if DPs were you know what I mean? For us, we had a certain worldview, a certain perspective on making film. So when I got up, for me, I just thought, well, maybe I'd, teach and supply, work with my friends. Daniel Williams, shout out to Daniel Williams, I'd get out and do that. And luckily, on the way, because I realized that community was everything and that, partnership is everything. Luckily, after being nurtured in this environment, I step out into the real world and I meet my wife, Steph. And this is when I had no job prospects. Man, there's so many people I want to name. Chadwick Boseman, my man, Logan Coles, who was Chad's right-hand man, who's still making films. These dudes gave me all my first opportunities when I was in New York, hungry. And I shot for all of them. So these cats, and this is a testament to community, these cats were looking at me and they were like, do not break your fast on McDonald's.
Yeah.
You stay over there fasting and I'm gonna give you a little something. And my wife was saying, I will not allow you, because I've watched you for all this time, I'm not gonna allow you to just break your fast with McDonald's. So, I would sit in my apartment. Luckily, my wife had a good job because she's smarter than me and she's like, she's on another level. And she said, yeah, do your thing. So I would sit in the apartment, smoke my little joint, make my little reel and send them out to, send one to 40 Acres and a Mule, send one to here trying to get jobs. I wasn't getting the calls. I wasn't able to pay the rent. But luckily, I come from a family like my father who, God rest his spirit, who didn't bog me down with all these notions of masculinity. Oh, I gotta provide for my family. I'm a man. I gotta get out here and earn this money. It's none of that. It's not even in me. It's not even in me. You know what I mean? It's maybe in me a little bit now because I got all these, these birds looking, going, get them. But then I have it, you know what I mean? And luckily I had a partner that was like, I don't even want to hear about that. I don't want none of that in my house. So, I was blessed to have a partner and community that basically, was holding me up and supporting me and was able, all that big talk I had about my convictions and what film is and the revolutionary potential of film, people that were like, yeah. That's why I need you to shoot for me. But I also need you to have a little nibble of the food so that you can stay focused on this thing that we see in you and this potential we see in you. And I just stayed the course, man. I just stayed the course. And it was hard. It was hard because, you know, you do feel inadequate. And, you know, part of that colonization, this thing that happens with us when we're in, you know, when we're in outside spaces, we're not in these majority cultural spaces. Those films you grew up are still lingering in your head. Some of the kids that went to Howard also went to NYU. That's how Ernest Dickerson met Spike. So basically out of the Howard Film Program, you have Ernest Dickerson, Arthur Jafa, Malik Saeed, right? So you got three of the greatest cinematographers of all time came out of that program, and they were all trained by Haile.
Okay.
You know, a lot of us would, you know, end up graduating from Howard, going to NYU. But even if we didn't go to NYU, at some point during the year, those friends would invite you up from Howard, or the NYU students would come down from NYU and screen their films at Howard, because we had this relationship, this historical relationship. And the NYU kids, well, first let's start at Howard. We had one SR2 that got stolen. Somebody stole it from the tech center. Then we had an Aton XTR Pride.
I love those.
I love them. That you could never get your hands on because it was always gone. And then we had one, I think it was like I don't remember what it was. We had one Zeiss Distagon Prime, and we had a Zoom that was too slow. Okay, that's the Howard Film Program.
Yeah.
Okay, and we had a locker, a little refrigerator of film that was always locked down. Then you had the NYU kids. They had BLs, they had Super Speeds, they had SR3, Super 16 convert. They had a whole thing, right? And then they had Sandy Sissel there, bless Sandy, peace to Sandy, who, you know, send them to go to Panavision and get you a package. You know what I mean? That's back when we had Area CSC. Go to CSC and get you a package. They had resource.
Yeah.
So they would come to Howard, or we would go to NYU, and we would show our films. And our films were looking a little bit like Roy De Carava. They were looking a little bit like Harris. They were looking a little bit like Gordon Willis, because we had one light, and we were like, go ahead and top light. Now I'm gonna come back to the top light, because it wasn't just top light out of lack of resources. We were actually saying something because of the pedagogical framework that was at Howard. But it just looked different. It was a little grainy. The lens didn't collate. So it was, the chromatic aberration was off the chart.
Yeah.
Even at a 2.8.
Yeah.
Right? The cats came down from NYU. Man, it looked like a Hollywood film. So you're looking at their image, I'm looking at their image, and I'm like, my images are completely inferior. Because that little dragon, that little thing came back on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Your images don't look good because it doesn't look like theirs. So that whole inferiority complex starts to play out. I think I always say it sets up a couple of things. It sets up a kid like myself, or many cats that I knew who just gave up and walked away. Or you go to war. You go to war with that little thing that sits on your shoulder. And I know this is a lot less about, you know, making the sacrifice, but I think when you sit still and you live in the quiet times, and you live with your belly not being full, and you live with the choices you make, and you live with saying no, other things start to strengthen. And I think what strength is you'd have to start depending on other things that are not taught to you. You know, so I always say when I'm in a tight situation, my resistance is I go to my grandmother's living room. So I look around, I'm like, well, hey, I'm here, it's Hollywood, and I got all the lights, and I still can't light this damn scene. I thought you told me if I had the 9,000 18Ks and the 5,000 techno cranes and the da-da-da-da-da that I would be able, and Dan Sasaki made me the lenses, that I would be able to make the movie. And I got all of that, and look, I can't even figure out how to light this scene.
Yeah.
And then I go, hey, Susie Young, come on down, help me up out this thing.
Yes, what is this about?
Tell me what's happening. And she whispers in my ear, okay, turn off all those lights. That's all trash. You got 9,000 lights on now because you're insecure.
Yeah.
Turn off all the lights and put on one. And first start with that lamp. You know you're not gonna have enough exposure to start with the lamp. And then we start to get there. So I think I've tried to stay committed, and you know I tried to and I realized that making the choice to stay firm on my principles about the choices I make and why I'm making the choices, because I realized if I made other choices, it would have wiped me out. And I tried to make choices that kept me in my safe place. And it didn't mean certain things didn't happen as soon as I thought they would happen, or the way that, because sometimes I realized I didn't have a notion of how it would happen either, but you know, my journey was just different. I'm not trusting these people because their history, their behavior in history doesn't doesn't offer a lot of trust. So if I'm gonna do this thing, I need to create a space where I can be safe.
Yeah.
And and I think what's beautiful about this generation is the things that you and I are doing, and all the other cats that we can name. We're doing it so that they can come into this space and not make the mistakes. Make mistakes because they're natural mistakes. Don't make the mistakes because you were insecure and you didn't have trust.
Yeah.
Not having trust, don't aspire for that. That don't feel good.
Yeah.
Come when you feel like you got something to offer, and it's non-negotiable. It's negotiable because it's a collaborator, but you're protected. And community's here to protect you. And I think that's the lesson of just like sticking to your principles. Yeah.
I had a very good friend when I started. It was a focus puller in Spain when I used to live in Spain, and he's like 10 years older than me. So when I was starting with my first jobs, he was there for like 15 years, and so he was like the guru. And he came up with this thing like, don't go in out of tune.
Don't.
And that was like the whole. So whenever we were doing commercials to survive, but we knew like, okay, I'm doing commercials so that I can keep being super selective. In the same way that I was with my first shorts and all my shorts, I can keep being super selective with the movies, right? But whenever it was like a shitty commercial, we'll just look at each other and like getting out of tune here. And the whole thing was like, don't do this with the movies because you wanna keep tuning your instrument in every day of your life so that you're getting to what's the best that you can play. And every time you're with the wrong people or in the wrong project, you're getting out of tune.
Yes.
Then it's hard to come back.
Yes.
Then instead of going deeper and deeper and deeper, you're just like going to other places. And that's the hardest thing, in a way, because of all the things that you just
but I love
said.
that. I love that metaphor of like staying in tune, because really at the foundation of that is like having a relationship with your instrument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a sacred relationship.
Yeah.
And I had an artist friend who was a painter, who was basically like, make your thing and then let it speak to you. I think we all do that. We all have that relationship. We all understand that, as cinematographers, we all understand, as filmmakers, but as cinematographers, we all understand that. But it's good to remind yourself that stay in tune and sometimes you gotta just let the instrument speak to you, you know what I mean? And I think that's part of that, like creating a safety net, like a security blanket for yourself.
And sometimes it can be counterintuitive because you might be waiting for the right job to come and don't have money to eat or to pay the rent because you're waiting for the right thing, because if you do this one that is not the right thing, you might buy the house with the pool in the hills, but you're going to be so out of tune.
Yes.
And then you have to steer back the boat, and it's like, it's a big thing, and especially when you're starting. And you get confused because you're like, I have to now go to the next level and tick this box, collect this level of experience. Every decision you do is taking you in one direction, and when you're taking these decisions for fear or like this A is going to take me to B and B is going to take me to C, it's not the right way of thinking.
It's going to show up in the work.
Yeah.
It's going to show up in the work. And the thing that I think, that we all have to remember is that we're not entitled to any of this. We're not entitled to any of this. And a lot of us got it twisted, that we think this is a meritocracy. This ain't a meritocracy. That's not the game that we playing. And maybe if we do the right thing and we stay focused and stay in tune, then when the kids come, then it might be a meritocracy, maybe. But right now it's not. And my thing is that if you're out here trying to play that game, forget about it.
Yeah.
It's about something else. Something else is at play. And the reward is not another movie. I was talking, we can speak frankly. I was talking to our dear friend Autumn, and I was like, come Sunday night, if they don't give you that statue, the lesson here is that the first who's supposed to get that statue ain't born yet. Have we ever thought about that? Maybe they're not born yet. Maybe they're not born yet. And guess what? Harris never got nominated. And Harris is the greatest of all times.
Yeah.
For us.
For us, yeah.
For us. For us.
Yeah.
My man never got nominated. Darius Don't have one yet.
That's crazy.
And our sister, don't even get me crying. That whole moment, okay?
Yeah.
Listen, where I'm coming from, excuse my language, fuck the Oscars, fuck Hollywood. Where I'm coming from, don't nobody care about that dumb shit. But Autumn and Ryan and Mike made me care for 2 seconds.
Of course, and the grace that she had during the whole thing.
And that's the reason why. And that's what I'm saying. It ain't about what we think is at play. That's for those other boys.
Yeah.
That's their game. That's not the game we under.
No.
Okay? We come from colonized civilizations. We come from enslavement.
Yeah.
Okay? We're not playing the same game. We're playing a different game. Our game is about patience. Our game is about grace. Our game is about loving one another in a real way. Our game is fuck competition. I do not care. I'm not an athlete. I don't like the NFL. I don't like the NBA. I do not care about none of that shit. Astaghfirullah, I'm cursing too much. But anyway,
No,
I don't
love
care.
it.
I don't care about none of that.
Yeah.
I want to see this good person over here, this sister over here who's amazing. I'm praying she wins because the game, what we get from that moment, though I don't understand, but I want to see what happens to myself. I want to see if I actually surrender to what's actually a beautiful moment. But, but I say that, rewind a little bit. When we're in those zones, we're in those moments, we have to also think about the other things that are at play. That child might not be born that year that me, Rodrigo, Greg, James, who else was there? Linus, that year at the Oscars. My whole thing was, okay, if I go out on this campaign, the first thing I'm gonna tell everybody is we're all imposters and Natasha should be here right now. We're all imposters.
Was that the year of Neon Demon?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We all imposters. Natasha should be here right now, if we're real honest. So there's other stuff at play that we cannot control. That's not about the work. It's not about any of that. It's about something different. And we need to show these young people that we can do this. We have to have perspective. We have to feel, it's about that entitlement thing.
But also, in a way, like the Oscar, in this case with Autumn, of course, it means a lot, and I'm so happy. But it's also, I just never, because we are saying we don't belong to this system, we don't care about the system, we're making other type of movies. So the Oscar should not be what represents the success,
Yeah.
And so it's like you cannot be an outsider and be of Hollywood, which is what we're trying to do, and at the same time aspire for that recognition, because then you're speaking the same language. Then you're speaking the language of like, oh, I'm so happy, this is my first studio movie. I'm so happy, like now I'm doing a movie with a bigger budget. It's not about that. It's about Harris. It's about fucking just do the movies that are somehow saying something to the world, contributing to make somebody's life better, this universe or this planet better, and just do it with your art and just follow those stories, follow those people. That's what we're here for. We're not here to play
The game.
this game.
But and also maintain your center, which is, I think if you we talk about Harris, like anybody that's worked with him, you talk to like this weekend, like past week, I was with Shane Valentino, who worked with Harris. You know what I mean? Like that man was about maintaining his center.
Yeah.
You remember what happened? He and Fincher were doing the big things, but then at one point for like 7, 8 years, Harris was the one with a China ball chilling with Gus or with Sophia, staying in his center. And I think I'll say this too. I think because the other reality is so violent in so many ways, that the ancient wisdom that we come from that keeps us rocking steady, we forget to access that. And I think that's the thing we're saying about knowing your story, knowing your history, knowing yourself, have knowledge of self. We forget to access the sacred balance that's provided to us through our ancestors. I remember when I was going to do Solo, and I was really conflicted. I was like, man, I'm not sellout if I go do this film. But then that little kid from Louisville, Kentucky is saying, man, you get to go do a star. So I had it, you know what I'm saying? Like I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I went to all the cats and asked them, should I do it?
Yeah.
And the people that I thought would say, nah, you shouldn't do that. Why would you do it? They were all like, go do it. And what they were basically saying to me is, go do it. Because if you go there and you fail and you get sent home, know that there's all these arms here in the community that are waiting to catch you. Because we know that we have raised you and reared you in a way that you can go out into that world now and not compromise us, or more importantly, compromise yourself. You misunderstood what we were saying. You thought we were saying, when we said we're about independent cinema, a liberatory cinema, you thought we said throw the smoke and mirrors out, throw the baby out with the bathwater? Now, part of the reason why we in cinema is because we like the smoke and mirrors, but we just have a different body politic. So go out into the world with all the things we give you, the beautiful smoke and mirrors, the tricks, but also the body politics so you don't compromise yourself. But if you're not compromising yourself, means somebody else doesn't understand, doesn't want you around, and they let you go, you have to go home. Know that when you come home, with like, let's say for instance in a real way, not with the money you expected to come home with, because you got to feed the family, don't worry. Your kids are never going to starve. And while you're sitting in the house licking your wounds, I'm going to come pick up your kids and take them to school for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's what they were actually saying to us, is that it's not don't go do it. It's not deprive yourself of it. It's not, it just remember that when you go into these spaces, you know what they are. The history is very transparent. It's not, you know what I'm saying? It's very transparent. Everybody from David Putnam they all wrote about it.
Yeah.
It's very transparent. You just have to know how to engage with it.
Yeah.
And that's the balance. And that's what, and I think that's what I'm also trying to say about, Ryan, Mike, and Autumn, is like, that is a community right there, and that is a testament to what it looks like when you work in community. And that when you work in community, you can be safe. And when you work in community and you're safe, then people win.
Yeah.
Mike and Ryan are two people, one from New Jersey, one from Oakland, California, who are germinated in a particular social experiment. You can look at their mothers and their fathers and their grandparents and see this is the reason why you're watching these two dudes in a situation where it don't seem like no dudes have integrity. These cats right here got integrity, straight back, loving, warm, poised. You see honesty all on them because they are nurtured, germinated, and created in a situation where their parents are like, go to Hollywood, you blessed. But when you come home, you gotta do some spiritual cleansing. I gotta wipe you down and send you to the shrine and send you to the Orisha, the whole nine. They gotta do all of that because their parents understand what's going on. But you can go out there and play because you've been prepared. We prepared you. And that's the thing that these kids, that's the thing you want to teach them, is like, man, your parents is coming from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, they coming from Cuba, they coming from Argentina, they coming from Africa, they coming from Asia, they coming from all these places with all this ancient knowledge. And all of y'all Americans that think America is the holder of ancient knowledge, you are fooling yourself. America is not an identity. You Irish American. Get out your American and go deal with your ancestral knowledge. Because if you were dealing with your ancestral knowledge, you wouldn't be trying to enslave me. If you're dealing with your ancestral knowledge, you wouldn't be trying to hold directors hostage. If you were dealing with your ancestral knowledge, you wouldn't be dropping bombs on poor people. But because you have dislocated and dislodged yourself from your ancestral knowledge, only thing you can do is check into violence. And it shows up in all of your institutions.
Yeah.
And here we are with all this preparation for love and all the things. And we're not showing the young people, like, don't worry about that. You didn't get that job, you good. Because you should have community. You shouldn't even be stepping out here without community, because we all know that that's the thing that has kept us secure and alive in this place that is, don't get me started.
Yeah.
We all know it. We all see what's going on.
Totally. I mean, that's what we're trying to build with Deep Light. This community that gives people what you and I, well, you had it with your family, but when you come into the real world, like, we didn't have it when starting, and just, that's what's going to hold it together, and that's what's going to make everyone stronger and confident in their voice, in who they are, and keep them in tune.
Right.
And it's community is everything, right?
It's everything.
It's simple.
It's everything.
I'm still amazed at myself, like, why do I live in LA, right? Because, like, all my beginnings as a filmmaker, I was in Argentina. I was like, I'm never gonna go to Hollywood. Then I was a European, filmmaker, and it was, of course, it was, and it's never been, and it's not still today, my dream to, like, make it in Hollywood. Like, I get the calls for those movies that people would be like, I made it, and I can't do it, even if I maybe want the house with the pool. But I'm like, I can't.
Right.
I can't. Like my soul is not designed for this, you know. But it's weird in a way that a bit by accident, because I was working with the right people
Yeah.
here, and because our great friend Rebecca, I ended up here.
Yes.
I fell in love with a lot of things in California, and I was like, I like living here, and I can find my people here. It would have been a much easier journey actually to stay in Europe, where all my people were, like, you know, instead of coming here to just like have to find them, you know, through the thing.
Right.
But it's and I'm like, why, you know, why did I end up here? You know, was it just like it was too rainy in London and I needed the sun?
Right.
But it's so interesting because it's been this spiritual journey, like what you're talking about, the fasting, and it's been fasting not through Ramadan, but it's been like all this, you know, seeking somehow through different methodologies and meditations and fasts and therapies and ayahuascas and drugs and this,
Yep.
like just trying to always like stay in the center and understand, yes, I'm here, but all of this that what this means is not what I really want.
Right.
But I happen to be here. So why am I here? It's been like, you know, this thing that you were saying about those movies very early on that were making you hate yourself in a
Yep.
way, and they were like the programming. And it's like, I've been living now for 15 years like inside this matrix,
Right.
where I'm seeing this every day. And it's kind of, in a way, you would say, well, it's harder to stay in tune and to not get tempted or not get confused.
Right.
Like, why I'm not doing this? Why is that other person doing that and stuff? And so it's been like this spiritual test to like remind me every day, look, I'm here, but
Yeah, right, right.
all this is not what I want.
Right.
I happen to be here, you know, like kind of going to the supermarket when you want to be fasting.
Right.
And I don't know why I chose this extreme, you know, experience in a way, but
We were doing Space Jam. Terrence was directing and I was shooting, and Nakeem was production designer. Terrence is like, he's of the spirit all the time. And when we were making Space Jam, he was in a spiritual journey, so he always wore white. You know, white everything, socks, shoes, hat, everything. He was in his Ocha, he was in his spirit work. I remember the first day of the shoot, you know, Terrence came to the stage and it was like, you know, we're not starting the day without prayer. And it's not hands together, people, no, it's, you know, prayer in the universal sense.
yeah,
So,
connection.
yeah, exact connection. and I'm really telling this story too because it's about why we're here. Because we got to remember, we're like today, we're the cinematographer. We chose this. We're up front. We're everything's horizontal, but when we look to our left and our right and up and down, you got crew. You got working class brothers and sisters who are looking at you, who are invested in you, saying, "Oh, you think I'm just humping cable just because I need a check? I'm also, I've been doing this. Oh, I'm trying to get that euphoria too, because I'm invested in you, putting up that light and then moving the thing, and then we all go, that's why they're here." But the way they train it, these are just dudes humping cables for you, women and women humping cables for you. Now these people trying to get that feeling. I always say, at any given moment on the film set, 20% of the cats we looking at formerly incarcerated. At any moment on the film set, 30% of the cats we looking at, substance abuse issues, either that right now or formerly. You look at any of the set, 60% of the cats we looking at are going to AA. The film industry is the only industry left where you can get out of jail on Monday, show up on set, not have to piss in a cup, ask her some soul-crushing question about have you had a felony, and make $300 a day. Look at that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Look what we doing. We ain't gotta wear no tie. I can be queer, trans, inverted, black, white, purple, upside down, post-human, post-animal, whatever I wanna be on the set. Nobody's saying nothing. Yo, homie, just plug that in the right socket and don't electrocute yourself. Anyway, we over here, you know what I mean? That's what we got, blessing. So we sitting on set and he says, let's make prayer. And I look around and I see all the knuckleheads from Ventura County, all the dudes I love. I've grown to love. All the dudes who have shown up for me like soldiers. And I don't care who they voting for. I do not care.
Of course.
I do not care. Because that does not define you. I know that. They want us to believe that, but I know that. So I'm looking around, see, that one dude, oh yeah. He got a little swastika on his sleeve. I've seen him. Okay, I know him. Yeah, he's, okay. This dude over here, oh yeah, I saw he rode up today with the little Confederate flag. Okay, I see him. That dude over there, oh yeah, that hurt them. They were talking about how the brother, that sister over there is queer and how they, oh yeah, I'm looking around, I see y'all, okay. And guess what they were doing when Terrence made the prayer? They were all in the corner on their phone, laughing, talking to each other. That's day 1. Day 5, the dudes that were in the corner, they got like a little closer. Oh snap, he like 5 foot closer to Terrence got on a full cape, a full shawl. Terrence in his divine feminine energy all the time. By day, like, whatever, these dudes are in the prayer circle with us. They in the prayer circle with us. I'm like, look at this. That's beautiful. Guess what? When Warner Brothers came and they said, you fired, you gotta go home, guess what the crew said? Peace out. Shout out to Brad Ray. Shout out to my man, Brad Ray, who would be on the dolly with me talking about Trump all day. But that's my man. My man was like, oh, word? They fired Terrence? I'm out. Peace out. Because those false things, those things do not define us.
Yeah.
What defines us on a film set is that we are the forgotten ones. We got drug up out the gutter, a lot of us. You know what I'm saying? We got kicked out the house by our families, a lot of us. We displaced. We refugees. We missing limbs. We've been violated by our parents. When we show up on the film set, guess what? We all happy. Until those dudes show up, start playing games, and then we're not happy, but we happy to be with each other.
Yeah.
And look at the responsibility we have. Come up, we show up, and the cats that are inverted, twisted, tied in a knot, trying to figure it all out, they're looking at us and they're like, I've had so many times, cats, you looking at, you're like, yeah, okay, looking, okay. And then one day they roll up to you and say, yo, man, when I read the script, oh snap, he read the script. It said that we're gonna do this thing, and when I read it, I felt this thing, like, what happened? How come yesterday we didn't do that shot? And I'm like, oh man, we ran out of time. They're like, man, that's a shame, man. Miss Cat got tats on them. They're like, oh man, I'm sorry. I want to feel something. Man, let me tell you my story. Man,
But that's what we're all here for.
That's
That's
what we all
the
here
humanity,
for.
and then it all gets confused because of all the external shit, right?
But we in this thing.
And also outside a film set. I mean, of course, in the film set, we are all these outsiders that we got together to make dreams, put them in a piece of film. But I feel that outside because I also learned it in my sets with my film crew where, yes, maybe half are voting for the different party or whatever.
Right.
But like, I love them. They're my brothers and sisters. And
That's
like,
it.
I don't see like, you know, I don't see any difference in the essential that we are. And then that also made me see it outside the world. You know, it's like, I don't give a fuck. We all want the same.
Because
you
we
know?
know what the game is.
Yeah.
And the game that's being played is not necessarily them against us, it's us against I, as the Rastas would say. It's us against us. It's are you...
Don't look up, right? Just look right and left and fight with each other so that you don't see what we're doing up there. It's so simple.
So simple. That's the beautiful thing about the filmmaking endeavor is that in spite of all of the like industrialized thing that it has, that there's still something very precious about bringing all these people together. And it's still precious because of the kind of people that are being brought. The people who are like on the film set every day in the mud, it just gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And it's hard to not check out of that and be distracted by the things that happen around us because the things that are happening around us are also real. They're real things. But when I look at, you know, what we're able to do and what we're able to harness and the things that we're able to, the community we're able to be in when we come together, it's hard to be cynical all the time. It makes me realize that there's power in numbers.
Yeah.
You know, we can take care of one another. And these young people need to see that. They need to experience that, you know. That's the thing they need. And they need to have fun. They need to have a blast. And, you know, also too, you know, check some boxes, make some money, and take care of themselves and take care of their family and whatever they need to do. You know, that's also really, that's all I know that's important too, because of what the situation we live in. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It really is, and it you know, and like you said, it's a journey. It takes a while to loop back to the thing of being 18 at Howard and Michelle Marion. Shout out to Michelle Marion. I always say, if you want to find the real injustice in filmmaking, is the fact that Michelle Marion is not the greatest cinematographer alive. If you want to find real injustice in the filmmaking process, Burns Forsyth should have won 5 Oscars. But shout out to them. And when we were 18, they were the ones that were like Freddie Milton and all of them. They were like, hey man, you want to work on the film this weekend? Like, yeah. And then I go meet them for the film, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna go here. And they walking around with the 16 BL, and walking down the street. I'm like, man, what's going on? And then, and then Freddie Milton reaches to the ground. I'm like, what's he doing? He grabs the grate to the damn sewer and pulls the grate up. And he's like, go down there. And I'm like, what are we doing down there? That's where we making the film. And going down there at 18. And then I go down there, they got the smoke machine, and the dude comes running out, and he got the crazy mask on, and what was the brother's name? Jason. He and Jason down there doing the martial arts. And I'm sitting there like, hold up, what are we doing? This is what y'all do for homework? This is the homework? They're like, this is the homework. I'm like, I'm in. Sign me up. Sign me up. And they were scholars too. So I was like, man, these guys are smart. Listen to the language they use. Listen to those big words they're using. Nah, it's just, man, we blessed, man. We blessed.
Absolutely. And it's such a responsibility as well to be the leader of the team and mostly of the set, because after the director is asked, this thing of the instrument again, just to talk about music, I'm like working with Boots so much. It's all about music now for me. But it's like frequency.
Frequency.
You know, frequency is everything. You know, like you as a leader, as a cinematographer, and one of the main leaders on set, you set up the frequency. So you can bring this frequency of fear where everyone is like scared that they're gonna lose their jobs or whatever, working from a place of fear, or you can bring this frequency of love, like we all love what we're doing something important, and everyone is gonna have their place here to try, to fail, to bring what they want to bring, to question, right?
Yep. Opening up space for people to bring what they feel and have questions and have ideas. Look, we're there for the director. The director is there for the story, and that the story is going to, because stories are everything. That's basically what we're seeing in the world now. People are just trying to tell their story, and they're trying to tell somebody else, like, don't stand in the way of my story. Yeah. We have to remember that's kind of what we're in service of. You know what I mean? And that it's hard to not have a feeling or have something to say. You know, everybody's looking like, oh, you know, everybody on these cameras, they all are like, shh. They all thinking right now, if they're not tired of hearing us talk, they like, man, maybe I should go down a little bit to the right, go up to the left. We think it's just people just moving the camera. No, they're responding to the story.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out what's the best angle for this conversation, these words and these emotions and this lighting and the thing, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a, like you said, and like we've said, it's a community. It's a universe. It's a little microcosm, a little microeconomy that we create every time we come together,
and that's what it's all about, right? Just what you said. It's like this little square that you can see through.
Yeah.
And it's like, where do you choose to put this square?
Right.
We're all gonna choose it in a different place because of whatever. You know.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, like the first thing in Kodak was like, look through this and point through this. That's it. You know, but it's so pure.
I'm gonna use that now. I'm like, where are we putting this square?
Yeah.
Let's figure out where we putting the square next.
Yeah, because you have your own unique square, and then also you can open the square. It doesn't need to be square, but you know, it's all about that, your unique point of view, and understanding that that's your asset. That's your only asset. It's the truth. It's the truth that you were saying when I talk with my kids. When I'm with my kids, I want to be in my truth, right? So that little square has to be in the truth. Like when you're not feeling, when you're not sure, sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
Where the fuck I put the camera? I don't know, because I'm not in resonance with so of course I don't know where to put the camera.
Yeah. What's that thing you rely on to put you where you need to be? I mean, I grew up, I say I'm the son, but because my father wasn't a mortician and my mother wasn't a mortician, but my grandfather, my great-grandfather, you know, on my mom's side, morticians, you know.
Wow.
My whole life I thought I was just going, we have a family funeral home. It's called A.D. Porter and Sons.
Wow.
It's in Louisville, Kentucky.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. My My grandfather was he was away at Indiana University studying to be a lawyer. And my great-grandfather, who is not well, basically, told him that he needed to leave school and come back and run the family business. My grandfather made a big sacrifice, wanted to be a lawyer, came back to run the family business. And then my grandfather met my grandmother, who was came from a different set of circumstances, like well-educated. My great-grandfather was one of the first black students at Knoxville College, and but he was a postal worker. But then for black family, that was a meaningful job. My grandmother's people were singers and they were artists, and so when you get a singer and an artist, my grandmother was a teacher, but she also had a wonderful voice. And my grandfather was, this dude's born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He came from wealth. He was of means, and my grandmother wasn't necessarily of those kinds of means, and so they had a beautiful balance. They had this apartment in this building called the 1400 Willow. If you're from Louisville, you know the building. But their house overlooked. It had many windows. It had this crazy bay window, like crazy big bay window in the living room. It had many, many, many windows. So when you went in the house, it just had all this beautiful passive light and direct light. And and there was wonderful furniture, and my grandmother loved dried eucalyptus. So there was all this amazing dried eucalyptus, and there was, I don't know if you know about this, but there used to be this like a home, like a adornment company called Crabtree and Evelyn. Oh my God, some people here know about it. And my grandmother used to have the soaps, and so it's just like, and then and they had the art, and my grandmother's style was bananas, and my grandfather used to wear this cologne called King Arthur, and it was just like, and he played jazz all the time, and he always drank.
It's a feast for the senses, that house.
He drank the finest bourbon, and they were just ridiculous. It was ridiculous, but they had this funeral home. Funeral homes are usually gray, and the morticians wearing black suits.
But they were living every moment of life to the full.
Nobody wore black suits. You know what I mean? You walked in the funeral home, there was a fountain. You hear the fountain, it was the sound of water. And there was these wonderful pastels and the carpets and the rugs. And my grandmother was doing her thing. Wow. She was like, yo, we're not doing that. When our people die, we don't mourn that. We actually respect cultures that have that, but that's not our culture. Our culture is we celebrate.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I have my dad's family. My grandfather was a cook, a master chef, but because there was no opportunities for him in Chicago to be an executive chef, that just didn't happen. So he cooked for the Lords and the Taylors, like these big, crazy, billion-dollar families in Chicago. He spent half the day in Evanston, Illinois, outside of Chicago, cooking. He lived in the parsonage of the church, New Macedonia, his church. And my grandmother used to her job was that she worked at a factory where they put decals on speedometers, cars. She put the 0, 10, 20, 30, she put that on the speedometer. But they from Humphreys, Arkansas. So my family in the Great Migration, they came from Humphreys to Chicago. My mom's family has a whole completely different story, but my dad's mom and father have the most amazing journey. The way they were together, the way they got split. My grandfather went to Alaska to help build the Great Alaskan Highway with the Civilian Conservation Corps, the whole nine. And then they came to Chicago. We met in Brownsville. They had my father's 7 brothers and sisters, South Chicago, and they didn't have the same kind of means. So that house had a different warmth and a different feel. And there was a lot of people in that house, and they from the South, so there's a lot of fried food. So that smell, amazing, right? There's no Turkish rugs with like my grandpa no, it's deep red carpet, deep red rug. And there's mad people talking. And it's South Chicago, so there's this crazy sodium vapor light coming through the window and it's flecking off the thing. And then my grandparents had this painting, this like painting of Venice, but it had like lights in it. So it looked like chaos theory. It looked like it was moving, but it wasn't really moving. And she had the plastic on the couch. You couldn't sit on the couch. It was all of that.
What amazing.
One moment it's eucalyptus, Crabtree and Evelyn. The other one is chitlins and red carpet. And 9,000 people in there making too much noise, and my grandmother listening to some TV evangelist. And my grandfather, we would, drive from Louisville, it's 5 hours. So we get in like 1 in the morning, and then we go straight to bed. again, remember these stories, you know. If I watched The Color Purple, it'd have you thinking that every black man from the South is a beast like Mister. So when I saw that movie, I was like, what is that? Who is that black man? I don't know that man. My grandfather kissed me all on my face, wake me up at 1 a.m. with 5 bags of White Castles. You know White Castles?
No.
The little mini hamburgers? Man, he wake me up 5 a.m. Me and my sisters at 3 in the morning. Come on down. Come down with Captain Crunch, cornflakes, a big gallon of milk, and White Castle, and just kiss all on us and hug us and do the thing. And then say, Susie, we got some eggs. He make us some eggs. Brother, loving. But he had $2 to his name. My mother's father, different. Conservative. Controlled. Not so warm. He had his own, but more Victorian. More protector. You know, I had this father, this black man formed and forged in 1960s, 1950s, Southside Chicago. So he half Mickey Cobra, half Black Panther, and a running back. You know what I mean? He got his mother and his father who were like, go to church and be quiet, and he running from the police on the way from school to the house. When my mother's brother, my Uncle Woody, the police knew my grandfather, and they knew they better not say nothing to my, you know what I mean? Two different realities.
Yeah.
Two completely different realities. But these men, let me tell you something about them. And again, this is about your story. I'm just laying out the story. I'm not, you know, it may seem unconnected. But let me tell you, these men didn't need a woman to do anything for them. You know how now, the thread in the, if we just listen to the thing and the whatever, which is true, is that I love when I hear sisters say, I don't need no man to do nothing for me. I'm like, word. Because I know some brothers that are like, I don't need no woman to do nothing for me. But nobody's giving you that balance in the conversation. Everything is about the man is, okay, it's true too.
Yeah.
But all the brothers I knew growing up cooked their own food, swept the floors, took care of the kids, kissed up on us, loved up on us, hugged up on us, showed us so much love and affection. This whole stoic man I don't know nothing about that, and you're not gonna make me come up with a fake story. No. All those men in my life were loving and beautiful. And nobody ever talking about, I'm a man, so that I don't even, that's what I'm saying. That stuff for me is like, I don't even know what you're talking about. All those brothers were just like, just happy to have a good wife and beautiful children and be alive. When I decided that I was gonna be a filmmaker, even though I had all these amazing, you know, inspirations with these like Hailey and everything, I was still like every day like, why am I drawn to this cinematography thing? Like why? Basically what happened too is like, you know, you do the directing project and then the direct teacher's like, okay, sit down. You do the sound project and they're like, okay, sit down, thank you. But then you do the cinematography project and they're like, oh, that's interesting. You're like, oh, I got their attention, let me focus on that.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're shooting everybody's film, whatever. That's kind of what happened. But even then I was still saying, what is it? Why is it that the cinematography thing feels more than just me trying to please a teacher? You know, why do I feel this connection to it? And when I started asking myself the questions, I realized that I grew up in this completely visual environment. And it started with adornment. All the black kids I knew that were in the punk scene and the hardcore scene when I came up, and they had the piercings and the tattoos or whatever, and we were like, what is that? And the parents are like, what? And then they would open up the book. They would open up a book and there'd be these books about African adornment. And you see the Ethiopian women with the tattoos on their face. And you see the sisters in Kenya with the piercings. And we thought that we didn't have precedence for that. We were like, oh, look, our ancient cultures, we were already doing that.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing with the cinematography. I was like, oh, all the beauty and adornment and all the things that just look like trivial, capitalist, middle class. No, that's ancient for us. It shows up in this cultural time, in this moment, in this context in a different way. But that's epigenetic. That's passed through all of us. My grandmother being like, man, this funeral home gotta smell good because they downstairs embalming bodies and you can smell. She's like, no, when these people come here, I remember my grandfather used to say, black people can't have dignity standing up, so I'm gonna give them dignity laying on their back. I'm going to give them dignity laying on their back. So when we put out these cameras, we gotta be showing people love. We gotta be doing the stuff that, because I started working at funeral home when I was 12. And I was there with Carl, man, naming all the crazy cats who were there. Man, these brothers were wild. But we would be setting up the chapel, because inside my grandfather's funeral home, we had all these parlors, and then they had the chapel. So the chapel would be, if you had enough money, you could get the chapel. But if you didn't, you could still have the smaller parlor where a few people could come. And then if you wanted to look like a little reprise, you could do it in the chapel. But the chapel had, but when you walked in, the doors, it was full Wes Anderson, right? It was full Roy Anderson.
I love him. I mean, like Songs of the Second Floor is like,
Incredible.
yeah.
So you walk in the chapel at my grandparents' funeral home, the door, when it opens, perfectly aligned to the steps that lead to the elevated thing where they had the pulpit and the podium, and then the organ was to the right. So everything was perfectly stacked. And then you had the line going all the way to the casket, and then the casket, next to the casket, you had the flowers that ascended from the sides of the casket all the way to the casket. The flowers ascended in the perfect, like, pyramid, right? And then the casket's in the middle. And then we would be there putting the chairs up the night before with that tape. No, 2 inches. Measuring that, a full tableau. Then I'm like, when I'm out here making these frames, and I'm like, get the balance. And then I'm saying, man, that looks too Wes Anderson. I'm like, no, it's not. That's 80 Porter and Sons Funeral Home.
Yeah.
1300 West Chestnut Street in Louisville,
But
Kentucky.
it's all about dignity, which is
all
so
about-
interesting, because you're doing something different, but it's kind of about the same.
It's about taking care. And I'm saying all these things too, because I don't want to make it seem like I showed up realized. I showed up half. I showed up not even half. I showed up an eighth. An eighth. It took me all the way to this moment to just understand the elements.
Yeah.
And I'm not even in practice with the elements yet. I'm just understanding the elements.
Yeah, no, of course, at the beginning, it's just intuition. It's just like you're just trying to do what you think it feels right. And I think you understand after a long time. People tend to understand, this was my experience, people understood who I was as an artist before I understood. And I started to read what people were writing about my movies, or like, okay, now the Natasha Breyer voice or whatever, she's doing this. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you're young and you go to an astrologist to tell you who you are, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm Sagittarius, I'm this and that, you don't know, and somebody's telling you, oh yeah, I'm this, right?
Yeah.
And it just takes the whole journey to really understand who you are and where you're doing things from. You remember this was maybe that year of Neon Demon and Arrival and stuff, that we were in Camera in one of those diversity panels, right? Before diversity was cool, right?
And before they went full axe on it, before they were like,
yeah,
trying to get rid of it.
So I was like, okay, so like, how do you see the world, Bradford, as a black man? How do you see the world, Natasha, as a woman? And remember, and I was like, you were like, I see it from my blackness, and I was like, I'm not defined by being a woman. Like, things have changed a lot, obviously, in 10 years. Because in a way, like, my own search of my identity has been more complex, because I don't have like a clearer place where I come from, like you, right? I come from like immigrants from lots of different places in Argentina, a place with zero identity. So it's not like a clear legacy that I can go back. It's ancestors from different places, but it's kind of like you have to look in a different place, which is like more abstract in a way, and maybe, like not so grounded on this earthy life.
Yeah, this earthy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just remembering that, that conversation that we had in Poland, you and I, about, because you were like, I'm never going to refer to you as a female cinematographer again, because you don't want to be identified with that. I get it, but I want to identify as a black cinematographer. And I still feel the same, because I feel my journey and whatever is that I bring to the table, whatever is my human experience or my point of view, is not just being a woman. It's but now, 10 years later, almost, I can tell you now I realize, of course, being a woman, it's a big part of it. It's also all the other things that made who I am, right?
Right.
But it took me a long time to to go for Silco
Right.
and be able to embrace, you know, because it was like, I don't want to be recognized because I'm fucking weird, because
Right,
I'm not
right.
supposed to be in this room.
Right.
This is not what I'm bringing to the table. I'm bringing who I am, like, you know.
Right. I remember that moment well, because Ed was there with us too, right? Ed was on the panel.
Ed was there, yeah. And it was Chris Doyle
Right,
who was
right.
asking us.
Right.
Chris was drunk and he was like, you know, how
What is
does
all
it
this-
feel to
right,
be a
right,
woman?
right.
Like, how do you see it all as a woman? I was like, I'm a woman. I'm from Argentina. I had heartbreaks. I had like so many things that happened in my life experience that are my point of view. Like, it's not about me. You know?
Yeah, and our you know, our worlds define us. Our worlds define us. And you know, the family now, we moved to London just a little while ago. You know, that was a very intentional decision to leave here. You know, it wasn't about job, it wasn't about work, wasn't chasing no tax credit. It was time for me to leave this place. You know, I come from a long tradition of people, you know, especially my grandmother. We're talking about my grandmother, you know, her brother and his family, they left. My great uncle, Sonny, left the U.S. in 1968, turned in his passport, died in Vancouver, and he was knighted there. My cousin Eric left the U.S. in 1969, went to Sweden, and then came back. And there he is a respected blues musician. I always saw myself in that lineage. I always saw myself displaced. I always saw myself out of this place, because it may seem disconnected but connected. But I think our struggle needs to be an international struggle. Our struggle needs to be an international struggle. But I want something different for my kids, man. It's very important to me that they not be burdened with the things that I was burdened with, but I need them to respect the journey of their ancestors. And, you know, goes back to that thing about the balance of it all. So that day when you heard me define me as a black cinematographer, that's very loaded. And that's the thing I forgot to say that day. Because we all works in progress. And that's the ever-evolving idea. Especially, you know, I'm gonna really try to keep it focused on cinematography. I don't even know, I know you weren't saying that to get me to go off on this, but I think it's still connected to this thing about like, who are you? Where are you? At the very, very, very primal level, I need this club of cinematographers, especially in the American context. I need it at that time, and I need folks to know that I am not you. I'm not you. You know? I remember when Rodney Taylor called me and said, hey, you want to get in the ASC? And then he said, who can write your letters? I said, call Johnny Simmons, call Rodrigo Prieto. You know, I know Johnny forever, since I was an undergrad, first year of grad school at Howard. And he knew Haile, my mentor. And I remember that day, I went to the clubhouse and they sat me in this room, and I looked behind me and there was this picture, and it was like Thomas Edison, it was all these dudes. And I was like, look at these cats right here. Somebody created the light, somebody made the camera, somebody created the studio, look at all these cats. But don't nobody here in that picture look like me. Nobody. The insecurity of me, but also the thing that's really important for me to say is, you didn't invite my grandfather, you didn't invite my father, you didn't invite my mother, you didn't invite any of them to the club. But you built your whole empire at the expense of my grandmother, my father, the da-da-da-da-da. But now I'm in the room. So how I'm gonna deal with this? I need you to know that I am not you, and I don't want to break bread with you. I don't need to be invited to your house. I don't need to be invited to your parties. I don't need to break bread with you, because I have this other thing that I stand on, that I stand in, that holds me up, that is not about what you about. Because all y'all dudes, there's some real compromising things. But over here, there's this thing, i.e. that I call blackness, that's very imperfect, but it's built in a certain kind of love, in a certain kind of understanding, in a certain kind of thing that I could be wrong. But for me, that's my safety. Before I can even pick up a camera, it's the thing that helps me understand light and shadow. It's the thing that helps me understand frequency and sound. It's the thing that helps me understand my taste, my sense of the world. It's defined, and it was defined. It's not defined by a book or a dogma. It's defined by the thing that my grandfather was invested in. Remember what I was saying? Like, his thing was
it's the real communities.
The real
we're
community.
Trying to create communities to fulfill this gap of community.
Community.
Right? So.
And look, the truth, the history is the history. I wish we weren't such a race-conscious society, but we are. That's the foundation of, that's the relationship that the founding fathers wanted to have with my people. Because you're not comfortable with the conversation don't mean the conversation's over. You still got to have that conversation with me. I know you thought it was going to end with my grandfather. I know you thought it was going to end with my mother, who then they were in the struggle, and then they got out the struggle. You gave some corporate jobs, and you thought that because they gave them some corporate jobs and they were fearful, and they also became Republicans, and they did the whole thing, and they became conservative, you thought the conversation was over. You sadly mistaken, sir. Conversation not over. I'm still here to remind you of the horror, family. I'm still here to remind you that I am the grandson of Woodford Porter and Harriet Porter, Susie Young and Odell Young. They watched their uncles, their grandfathers, and their cousins get lynched. I'm here to remind you that I ain't forgot. I'm not going to do nothing to you for it, but it's going to show up in everything I do. I got a slave master's last name. My last name is the slave master's last name.
Wow.
The last enslaved African was taken to Brazil in 1888. That could have been me. That could have been my grandfather. It could have been my The last slave was taken to, enslaved person, actually South Carolina later, but in 1888, the last enslaved person could have been me. So that ain't that long ago. I'm not ready to forget. And that's not that long ago, and guess what? I still got the slave master's name. I wake up every day thinking about that. You ain't got to think about that, sir. I have to. I have a real question about that. So until I process it and get it out of my system, I'm going to remind you every day that I have the slave master's name, and I don't like it. And
you do it through your art.
And I do it through my art,
Yeah.
and I do it through my actions, and I do it through the things that I'm trying to do, and the thing. And I'm also trying to tell all of my friends. And my friends look like a lot of things. My friends is like, the texture is amazing. And you know the reason why I made my friends? It's because they understand that part about me. They're not running from that. They're like, oh, we know that about him, we know that about her, we know about them, we know what that's about. And that's why we show up. The way we move the camera, the way we bend the light with the lens, the way we understand persistence of vision and how we fill in the frames that aren't there, the way we look at chroma, the way we look at luminance, the way we look at air gapping, the way, all these things that become part of the technique and the objectivity of making film. Not the objectivity, but the capital of how we make film. It's all, for me, it's all filtered through that thing. So if you like the thing that you see in Arrival, then you have to respect my journey. You have to respect the history of my ancestors. You have to respect what has come out of this. If you like the way Mother of George looks, then you have to not only respect my lineage and my history, you have to respect Andrew's lineage. You have to understand that's a Pan-African thing happening in real time. You like it? If you like it, then respect the Pan-African journey. If you like the lighting in the Arrival, respect the Black journey, respect Blackness, and respect it. It's not here to undermine you. It's here to be expressive of what it is. That's why we love Sinners. Because finally, at this level, there's a film that comes confidently saying, it's my story. You in it? Participate. It's beautiful when we all together. Ain't it beautiful when we all together? And when we're telling our story, all of that, none of that matters. Because we're telling our story. And if we all can tell our stories, then maybe we can be less defensive and less insecure about the things that people are saying and the things that people are looking for, and the compassion and the love and the thing. And maybe you can be more loving and more compassionate and surrender, and maybe we can get this thing together. You know. And as you said, we are cinematographers. We are not politicians. We are artists. So our contribution has to show up on the screen, and we'd be so lucky to be in a place where we feel comfortable to express the ideas we're expressing right
Yeah,
now.
because we are doing I mean, every
Every
act of
act.
looking or speaking is politics. So we eventually we are doing politics, but we're doing it through art,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And yeah, and I think that's the responsibility, just to stay tuned to what's the story that you as a human, as a result of the legacy that got you here. What's your story? What is the story that you need to tell
Correct.
to keep evolving for this world, right? To keep evolving and don't get distracted by fear, like I shouldn't say this. Now I'm being invited to the club, whatever the club is, so now I stay with the status quo. No, our responsibility as cinematographers is to tell the stories that we came here to tell. And
That's
just
it.
like keep in alignment with that.
That's
know?
it.
And
That's
do the
it.
best we can. That's it.
That's it.
It's,
And not be on the defense.
Yeah.
You know, always just tell the story you want to tell by any means necessary. You know, by any means necessary. I always say, you know, like the scripts that I want to do, I see my family in the script. You know, and it may not be obvious, but the way I see my family or the way I see let's say my grandmother in the script, it comes in many forms, and that's how I determine the work I want to do, because I want to be in communication with her, and this is one of the ways that I can be in contact. You know?
I feel the same, like my family. There's a lineage of doctors in my dad's side,
right,
and healers in my mom's side.
Okay.
And I never thought about it because my parents are Freudian shrinks. So I've been joking for 20 years. Oh, my parents are Freudian shrinks. That's what I'm interested in, character, script analysis, but it was coming like way behind that, you know.
Right,
It's like
right.
these two things that are, in a way, they all want the same. Now, some went with the allopathic, you know, thing, and the other ones were still doing the more energy work, but everyone wanted the same. Just help people transmutate whatever, you know, heal whatever wounds and like liberate themselves.
Right.
And all the movies that I chose without knowing this were always about identity, were always about like a transformation and a liberation, you know?
Right.
And it's just so interesting. It takes like years, if not decades, to say, oh, okay, I'm doing the same that everyone
That's
that
it.
got me here was
That's it.
doing,
That's
just
it.
with different tools,
That's
you
it.
know?
That's it.
And so when it works, and when you're doing a good job, and where people are resonating with you're doing, it's just because you're connected with that, whether you know it or not, right? It's
Yep.
just connected to what is it that you or me or anyone is here to tell, and it's different for each one of us.
Yeah, it's the beauty of it. Yeah, if you can identify it, then that's like, man, that's even more graceful, you know?
And even if you don't identify it at the beginning, because I think for some it's easier than for others, right? And maybe sometimes when you're in a sort of minority, it can be in a way easier to identify because you're just like fighting against something, right? I think at the end of the day, in one degree or another, we're all searching, right? We're all searching who we are, no
Correct.
matter, you know,
Correct.
where you're coming from. I think it's okay to say also that it's totally normal and okay to not know who you are when you're starting, when you're 30, when you're 40, you know, and that it is about this journey. So what you're tuning to is not, I know who I am from the first short film that I make.
Right.
It's just like, I know what feels true and what doesn't.
Right.
I know what feels right and what doesn't.
Right.
And I'm gonna follow that.
Right.
I'm just gonna follow that compass.
Right.
Maybe one day I'm gonna decodify and I'm gonna understand what was the noise and the
Right.
noise, you know, and know why I was going there. But like try to follow that truth, because that's the only thing that you have to give. Like there's thousands of people that can do amazing images in their iPhones today.
Right.
And what is it special that you're gonna bring to the table? Just your truth.
That's it.
So just like you just have to try to refine and distill, I don't know how I say, right? Just to connect with that truth, and then just let that be whatever makes you do whatever images you're bringing, and that will resonate with the people that it has to
Resonate with, yeah.
you know, and the projects that it has to resonate, and it will contribute to society in some way. And
I think the greatest contribution we can make to society is working on ourselves.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? We got to work on ourselves, you know. gotta sweep our own steps before we start sweeping other people's steps. You know.
Well,
so.
it's the fasting you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, it's just getting rid of all the noise. Silence is very important. You know, and I think any cinematographer can probably relate to, like, when I come back home, I want silence because everyone is talking to me on set, and it's all these voices and all these answers that I have to give. But that's on set, but also in life, also with the Instagram, with everything, with this modern world that is designed so that we don't have silence,
Yep.
that you cannot go inwards
Yep.
and find out who the fuck you are.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So those, I think, is really important to find whatever that means to you, those
Right.
moments of silence, of quietness,
Yep.
and just try to clean the noise and go inwards.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to be talking about
Yeah.
in the
tomorrow,
next 2 days.
for sure.
Yeah,
And
so
yeah.
I'm so
exactly.
excited
yeah.
to go deeper and deeper.
Yeah, yeah, I have. Yeah, you'll be able to see the material reality of, materiality of all the things I was talking about, my family and
Yeah.
how that shows up and why. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
I'm
yeah.
so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to share.
We have maybe 20 or 15 minutes left. Do you want to talk about those movies, the
Yeah,
good
okay.
movies, not
Yeah.
the movies that brainwash you, the movies that kind of help that DNA?
Yeah, please. Yeah, let's do that.
Ashes and Embers.
Ashes and Embers. That's Haile Garima. That's my mentor. That's his film. It was shot by Agustin Cubano, who was a Puerto Rican cinematographer. We all have been asking, like, where's Augustine? But he was amazing, especially on Ashes and Embers. He also shot a film for Haile called Sankofa. That's beautiful. It was one of those first films that I saw that just had a whole tenor to it, visual tenor to it, that threw everything off that I'd seen before, It was amazing to bear witness or experience that film that has so much to say about trauma, basically, and how we get back to, it's basically a film about what we've been talking about, how we get back to ourselves, and get back to taking care, It's so thoughtful, it's so beautiful, so gentle, but it's like every frame is about that. There's no frame that it doesn't express the sort of meta idea of the film.
As you talk about it, I think probably all the greatest films are about that.
Completely.
And that's why humans were telling stories to each other by the fire, right? Just to help with the different levels of consciousness that we had through evolution, just to help go through trauma and evolve somehow and, take it out.
Take it out.
Your body. And
I mean, that's what Ashes and
Heal.
Embers. That's what Ashes and Embers is about. It's really the metaphor is about every generation has this responsibility. Some generations are generations of fire, and the fire can burn. It can burn hot, but at some point it extinguishes itself and it becomes embers. And the embers aren't anything unless the ashes are on top of the embers, and they insulate the embers from wind and all the things that would ignite them again, so they can sit for a while, And once they're ready to ignite, the wind blows the ashes off and the embers ignite and you have fire again. But everybody's playing the role. So even the generation we're in, we may feel like we're in a generation of ash, which doesn't seem to be a fire or doesn't seem to serve the purpose, that sort of frenetic revolutionary purpose that we think we're serving. Even if you're in a generation of ash, you're still serving a purpose. You're keeping those embers hot, you know what I mean? And the embers are nothing without the ash, and the fire is nothing without the embers and the ash. So that film is really about that balance.
I love that cyclical thing, like arrival.
Yes. So yeah, it's a wonderful film about that, and the cinematography in it is very naturalistic too. It's also too, it's like no frills. Even when it's doing stuff like there's a sequence where he hangs a camera from a tree and spins it, and it feels like there's a metaphor there that he's working. It's just incredible. There's no fancy lights, there's no color. It's just beautiful, thoughtful, natural, and it's because the story is that,
I haven't watched it. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
home
you gotta
and
watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, watch it.
Yeah.
It's
Sounds
incredible. It's an incredible film. So the second one is, the next one is Daughters of the Dust, director Julie Dash and cinematographer Arthur Jafa. Before I saw the film, I went to a friend's house. My friend Candace Chandler, shout out to Candace. I was living in Chicago at the time, and her and her mom it was just her. Her father wasn't there, but her and her mom lived together, lived in this amazing apartment in Hyde Park. And funny enough, the first time I went to her house, they had Water and Chocolate playing when I walked in, and like Water and Chocolate, and then they had the coffee table book for Daughters of the Dust on the coffee table, and I was like, I didn't know what that was. And her and her mom were like, "Oh, you haven't seen that film? Oh, we saw that." You know, they were those, you know, those kind of amazing, wonderful women, human beings who were just like the spirit, so just the divine feminine energy, just incredible. And they were like, "Oh yeah, you haven't seen? You should see it." You know, I was like, "Nah, I ain't never seen that." And then they were like, "Oh, aren't you trying to go to Howard?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying to go to Howard." They were like, "Oh, the cinematographer went to Howard. He has an essay in the back of the book with Bell Hooks, who was, you know, at that time I didn't know, you know, very radical black feminist thinker." So I went to the back of the book thinking I was going to get through this essay, and I got through one paragraph, and I was like, "These are the smartest people of all. These are the smartest people of all times. What are they saying?" The epistemology, the language was crazy. So I just closed the book like, I'm not smart enough to read this. But what struck me was like this kid from Mississippi who was a cinematographer, and with all of my hangups about being from the South and not being smart and all of that, you know, he broke the mold. He's so brilliant. And just the stills I could see from the film were just gorgeous, you know? And having that, and having like Water for Chocolate there on the screen, and then when I got to Howard, you know, they were like, "Oh yeah, AJ went here. Oh, you never seen Daughters of the Dust?" Montre, she got a VHS. Go to her house and watch it. And I watched it, and it was just like, I would say there's not one more film that's not on here. Just a brief story. Went to Montre's house to watch Daughters of the Dust. Shout out to Montre, Missouri. We went to her house another time, and we watched Jane Campion's The Piano. But they used to do this thing where they would take the color out, and we were watching in black and white. I thought The Piano was a black and white film for 20 years.
That's so funny.
And then somebody's like, "That was color." I was like, "Nah, it's black and white." They were like, "Nah, it's color." I was like, "Nah, I saw black and white." They were like, "Nah, your friend must have." So it was that. So that's a very resonant moment for me, because that was so beautiful. Shout out to Stuart Dryburgh, like incredible.
Yeah.
So, you know, anyway, just reminded me of being at Howard and all the things that we saw then that was so amazing. Clockers, director Spike Lee,
Amazing.
cinematographer. He don't like it when I say it. I would say that's my mentor. But the uncompromising, the OG, God sent blessings, DP, Malik Saeed. For me, that film, obviously Malik shot Belly too. I didn't put it in he shot many other films, but I didn't put it here. And he shot, you know, After the Hunt for Luca. Clockers, for me, was, and shout out to Christian Epps, the gaffer. But they were doing stuff in that film that, just the stories about what they did in the film, which there was an American cinematographer on the film. It really was an expression of bravery. Every single element that we have control over can help tell the story. And it's not just about words. It's also about, you know, good frames and competent shots. It's also about how the shots are patinaed and what's the textural value. That film is so sensoramic. And for me, it was just like unbelievable when I saw it for the first time. One of the last films I saw before I went to Howard, so it was really resonate. It really stuck with me. So when I got to Howard, I learned that he also went to Howard, which I did not know. And Malik was so young when he shot it, you could feel the young energy in it, but it's just a masterpiece, you know, just really about how far we can go, you know. And shout out to Beverly Wood, who was at, you know, eFilm at the time, and she really made all of those experimental, Darius with Seven, Malik with Clockers, all that really incredible experimental photochemical work. She was the one. She's the patron saint of the laboratory.
I love her.
Yeah, so, yeah. Malcolm X, Spike Lee, Ernest Dickerson, obviously another Howard, another Howard alum. And another film I saw with my cousins, like our parents, my cousin, you know, my aunts and uncles and my grandparents made my cousins and I go to the movie theater by ourselves without the adults to see that film. And I'm just so thankful that I come from a family that valued the story of Malcolm X, and that, you know, they knew that that man's story was an important story for us to, you know, we all have read books. I'm not sure all of us had read the autobiography of Malcolm X at that time, but some of us had, but also see it in film, you know, to see a moving image or a rendering of him in film by this director who has shown us School Days and all the wonderful films before that was really a gift. And obviously, I remember when I was in Founders Library. At the top of Founders Library, there's a research center run by E. Ethelbert Miller, who's an incredible poet. And one day I was just kind of walking around in the library looking for something to do, kind of lost at Howard. And I found this research center at the top floor. It was like, I went through the stacks and I came through a door and I was like, what is this? And then I saw a room and I walked in, it was just all these books. So, you know, I kind of went in and was like, I don't even know what this is, but let me see. And I started seeing these amazing books. And then he came to me, E. Ethelbert. He wore a beret, this beautiful round glasses, beautiful beard, soft-spoken. Hey, how are you, man? What's your name? Oh, I'm Bradford. Where you from? Chicago. We're really from Louisville. Oh, what department you in? I'm in film. He's like, oh, you know who used to sit right there in that chair? Ernest Dickerson. I was like, okay, amazing. Yeah, Ernest used to sit in that chair. So that's why that film was really, really important to me, you know. Nostalgia, Andrei Tarkovsky. You know, DP.
Spiritual experience.
Yeah, the DP, Giuseppe Lanci. Director Daniel Williams, who I'm going to mention later, who I've mentioned before, is one of those people that was at Howard, who was a student, a graduate student, but also my professor. He showed me that film for the first time. And I had seen Andrei Rublev before that, and I really struggled. Like, Andrei Rublev kicked my ass. I was just like, The Life of Ivan, not so much, but Andrei Rublev was just like, man, it's hard. And I saw Nostalgia, and it was just so much more easy for me. And it was like the first film that I really understood Tarkovsky. And the first time that I understood, in a lot of ways, even though I had taken like a third world cinema class and things like that, but in a lot of ways that these expressions in film, we have kindred spirits all over the place. And that really was empowering for me to, again, to know that there was an international sentiment and feeling about cinema that we had, but we were just in this little small school in Washington, D.C. And after that, obviously, once Nostalgia, and everybody has a different experience with Tarkovsky, but Nostalgia was the first one that really like set me off. And it helped me go back to Andrei Rublev later and really sit with it, you know? You know, for me, it was like Nostalgia, Mirror, Mirror, then Stalker. The list goes on and on and on. Sacrifice, you know?
Yeah.
1,000 Days a Year, Daniel Williams, who introduced me to Nostalgia. He made a film called 1,000 Days a Year, which was his graduate thesis film from Howard University. He shot it. Daniel Williams is also now, shout out to Daniel, he's a professor at Bowling Green State University in the film program, and he's by far one of, if not the most like influential person in my life as a cinematographer. I shot my first feature was his feature. He gave me so much chance, so much opportunity. I made so many mistakes on his films, and he, that first being at Howard and not understanding what this formal like film education could become. But when I saw 1,000 Days a Year, I was like, oh, so when we come out of, you know what I mean, just elemental, when you come out of this program, I can make films like that?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is the place for me, you know?
Yeah.
So just one of those like elemental films that was just so important in my development. And again, these are not 1 to 10, this is like just on the cards, but The Yards, James Gray, D.P. Harasavides. I wanted to say Birth. I saw The Yards later. I saw Birth first.
Oh.
With regards to Harris's work.
Yeah.
You know, I know The Game was, you know, all those game films that were out before, but I didn't see those. And I wasn't hip to his music video work or commercial work. So the first film I saw by Harris was Birth, which was just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What is first of all, I was like, who let this happen? And then I was like, did he go to Howard? You know what I mean? I was like,
where did he go?
Where did he?
He was a still photographer.
He went to SVA.
Yeah.
He went to SVA.
Okay.
But he was still, he went to SVA, but he was still. I was like, did he know Roy Day Carava? Like, how is this cat? He's related to Malik A.J. Ernest now. You know what I'm saying? First of all, I was like, he must be black.
Yeah.
he must have gone to Howard, he must be black. No, but he had, just that just blew me away. For me, The Yards is about where that light's coming from. I remember reading New Cinematographer. Remember that book?
With the 4 people?
Yeah.
It was Harris, Seamus, Darius.
Escovitch.
And Escoffier, my God.
Escoffier, yeah. And Lance.
Lance was there too?
Yeah, I said Escovitch. But
I thought it was a before Lance.
No, Lance was in there.
Okay.
He has that story about how they were, it was that, I think it's the scene with Faye Dunaway's and Ellen Burstyn. Ellen Burstyn was, who played Mark Wahlberg's mother in The Yards? Ellen Burstyn.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Anyway, somebody was sitting in the kitchen, and he was like, they shot it and had the light and put the meter, and it was zeros on the ambient spot, and there was not much there. But he knew he was going to get an exposure, and they went to and I'm paraphrasing, but they went to the screening the next day, and James was like, man, we got to reshoot that. I can't see anything. And Harris's whole thing was like, it's not just a single frame, it's the frames that are around it. We're gonna
Yeah.
get to the other shots and it's gonna make sense. And they were like, nah, we gotta do it again. And then he says, we went back the next day to shoot it. I couldn't help myself. I did it again.
Even darker.
And I was like, that's my man. So, and then obviously, you know, hearing all the stories from Bev, because she worked with him on Birth, about what that, you know, all the mystery about the killer combination. Did he push, pull, whatever, and asking Jason McCormick, shout out to Jason, like, what'd he do? You know, the thing. So it's just, he's such a mysterious, but also so, just everything was so sublime, just so beautiful, but so the art is just like, I love that film too. You know,
Yeah.
I love the characters in that film. So,
Yeah.
oh, interiors, Woody Allen, and obviously Gordon Willis. Gordon. There's a calmness and a sort of mise en scène and tableau thing about that film, and there's a low contrast thing about that film that, yeah, that film is so effective. It's such a melancholy film on every level, and so well designed. And I think it's, you know, in combination with something like Birth and The Yards and Interiors and the work I was doing with Daniel, and I feel like that began my journey of like really trying to have a relationship with darkness. And really trying to, and also a film called Harvest 3,000 Years that Haile did, where I spoke to him one time about it. Shot in Ethiopia, about a story about these peasants and their war with this feudal landowner. And you know, Ethiopia at a certain point is very green in reality, and where he was shooting is very green. And he said, you know, the reason why he shot it in black and white is because he didn't want people to be distracted by the sort of bucolic, idyllic nature of the landscape. He really wanted people to be invested in the story of these peasants. So if you saw the grass, then you would think, oh, life as a peasant, it's not too bad. Look at the green grass. He was like, so he shot in black and white so you could be focused. And so, you know, I was picking films for a long time where we could, Ain't Them Body Saints, I think is probably like the apex of me trying to like really mush that, take that negative and destroy it and see how far we could grind it down to nothing and underexpose, you know, doing all the things we were doing. But really, Interiors was part of that combination of films that I was looking at and looked at forever and still reference as like, you know, in my cumulative value in my body of work, which I think a lot of cinematographers forget, it's about a body of work and it's about our cumulative value. It's not about one film, it's about all the films and all the things we have to say. That, you know, Interiors was very much part of me developing a body of work where I'm exploring certain things. I'm not doing that now because I feel like I have something else I need to say, but you know, that's what that film really. Killer Sheep by Charles Burnett, shot by Charles Burnett, and one of the most greatest unsung kings of cinematography, Roderick Young, who was at UCLA with Haile, with Charles Burnett, with Billy Woodbury, with all those filmmakers from Larry Clark, all those filmmakers from the LA Rebellion, which was a movement at UCLA in the 1960s of all these black third world filmmakers, Asian, African, black, First Nations filmmakers, Chicano filmmakers that came to, white filmmakers that came to UCLA that were very much living in the time of civil rights, black power movement. And they created a movement at UCLA called the LA Rebellion. Terrence Malick was there. They produced amazing films like Harvest 3,000 Years, Killer of Sheep. So many movies came out of that movement. Larry Clark's Passing Through, which is basically the predecessor of, which was one of the visual stories that Spike Lee was paying homage to in Mo Better Blues. But Roderick Young was shooting all those films, and unfortunately, we lost Roderick, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But there was no work for him, you know, and he became homeless. He was living on Skid Row, and the person that really stayed in tune with his brother was Johnny Simmons. Johnny was the one that like would go down to Skid Row looking for him and give him, but he shot all these groundbreaking films. And Killer of Sheep, for me, is hands down top 3 greatest American films ever made. And it's such a resource. And I think our generation is in that film even when we don't know we're in that film. It's present because it's so, and if you haven't seen it, you should really watch it. It's an incredible, obviously Charles Burnett's directorial style is incredible. Charles Burnett, again, too, one of the greatest American filmmakers, but Roderick Young's work is hands down. And Charles Burnett is a DP. He was a DP as well. It's beautiful, but Roderick Young is just like so incredible. Babylon, Franco Rosso, Chris Minges, DP. I really do love British filmmaking of a certain era. Like for me, Mike Leigh, Ken Loach, Terrence Davies. Like these are like
Yeah, masters.
masters. John Comfort, Isaac Julian, like unbelievable. And there's so many DPs that we love that came out of that. Alan Kutchler and all of them were there doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the things that they were looking at, the worlds they were in. I mean, Ken and Mike are, I call Ken, Mr. Loach and Mr. Lee are, but they stayed in that very working class kitchen sink, as I've heard people describe it, zone. The way those filmmakers show up for a story like I Am Daniel Blake, or the way they show up, and I'm using that, well, Chris didn't shoot that, obviously, Robbie shot that, but Chris would show up for Roland Jaffe or for Ken Loach, or the way he would show up for Franco Russo. And the thing that's amazing is that these cats, because they're in London, which is such an international, really diverse city, they show up in these spaces with the camera in a way that only a kid growing up in those environments could show up. That film speaks to me. It's one of the reasons why I really do love the UK, because there's something grim, but like just so electric about being there. And you know better than most, because you lived there for a while. You lived there, studied there. What they did with those kids and that story, and the way it didn't feel like outsiders looking in. It felt like when you're in the dance hall with Josh Shaka, there's an amazing dance. When you're in the dance hall and Chris is using one light fluorescent, he's just panning around, and you got all the young Rasta kids hopping in the dance hall and it's just like, that's why when you see Small Axe and you see what Shabs did with Steve, you're like, oh man, the spirit is still alive. You know what I mean? And I feel like that spirit, and it's in films like Young Soul Rebel or Burning an Illusion, which are Menelik Shabazz and Isaac Jr. They also have that thing. But for the sake of like cinema, like visuals, like Babylon is just like supreme. And Chris is like his worldliness, and his story about, documentaries and being in war, that all showed up, and just it's special. And it's special because it's a film about youth culture, a special film about youth, and it feels like it's a very youthful feeling, visually youthful feeling film. And it's like, one of the, you look at it, you're just like, man, with so much color and one light, it's just so ahead of its time, And if you look at a film like Mother of George for me, or you look at Rest of City, even Pariah, like I'm channeling, not only am I channeling Belly, but I'm also channeling Babylon. And it says a lot about a film when you talk to your friends who all grew up in the UK at the time, and they're talking about Babylon like it's their film, then it's a good sign. So just an incredible film. I think that's it.
Amazing. We don't have more time, but hopefully we'll do a part 2, but also we have 2 days with you on the land. So I would love to also hear you talking about, you dancing between, movies and documentary, because you've done so much documentary, and not only shooting for people, but your own documentary, your directing, and how all these worlds are kind of, they're blurring into each other in a way, like in a way that also directing and cinematography blur into each other. But the documentary, the fiction, it's a big part of, I think, that what your voice constantly developing. It's very connected with that.
Yeah, definitely. You'll hear more.
We'll talk more in the next 2 days. But thank you so much. This is fascinating.
No, thank you. Thank you, sis. Appreciate you.
Brushing with the mic. Job description.
Baker.
Yeah,
bread maker. You're like, really? Like, is that like my job description? Like my job?
Well, of cinematography.
Oh, cinematography.
Of you as a cinematographer.
Oh.
Yeah. But I like to see what's the connection.
It's not really what I'm doing. It's what I wish I was doing. And if I was doing what I wanted to do, I'd probably just be making bread.
Amazing.
Yeah, just be a baker.
You make bread at home?
I'm a pizza dough person.
Oh. Nice.
But you know who the killer master bread maker is? Like, master bread maker? Ryan Coogler.
Is he?
Master baker.
Oh. Yeah. I bought this machine to make bread like 20 years ago when I lived in Barcelona.
Right.
I think I used it like 3 times. Very failed experiments. I don't even think that thing could be called bread. But
lumps.
If you weren't, well, that's the same question. If you weren't a DP, what would you be? If you weren't a DP or a baker?
Farmer.
Farmer.
Yes. If I wasn't a DP, no, I'd be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be with the kids.
And farming. You can do both. You can farm with the kids.
Yeah, I would definitely be fully off the grid and just full-on hippie,
Yeah.
living out the camper van with the kids.
Sounds like my life without minus the kids.
Word.
You know, I'm building a
I
farm
already
in
know.
Spain.
I already know. I was like,
Yeah.
they don't know. They only see your shirt, but they don't see that your pants and your sneakers are full. Yeah!
Farming, I think, is the best.
It's the best.
I just love having my hands in the dirt and building things, concrete things. What's the most challenging thing about this job?
Listening. Being a good listener. I struggle with that, so it's one of the most challenging.
How do you keep sane, like your life-work balance?
Music. My portal of sanity. I start my day with music. Yeah. Wake up to music. Play music for my kids as much as I can. I'm listening to music on the way to work. I play music at work. Play music when I get home from work. You know, it depends on where I am. Like my house in Baltimore, my wife and I, we have hi-fi systems. Two of them we don't even stream on. But then we have like a little speaker in the house that plays music all day, every day. Like we sleep, it's on. We get up, it's on.
Wow.
We leave, we come home, it's on. It's just always on multiple playlists. Because for us, you know, it's really with the kids. It's like to give them that diet of music. It's the way I was raised too. Music all the time.
Is it one specific type of music or eclectic, like depending on the moment?
It depends on who's playing. Like my wife has a more eclectic
Yeah.
taste. My wife's from Haiti, so they have two music forms. They have gompa and they have rara. Gompa is more like, it's more romantic ballads, lovey-lovey, and then rara is more Yacine, they call it. It's more roots. It's more voodoo.
Drums.
Oh yeah.
I love drums.
Yeah.
I go crazy with drums.
It's drums. Yeah, so she plays a lot of that, and she plays a lot of soul, R&B classics. I'm more like just jazz. I'm trying to indoctrinate my kids with music.
Yeah, that's what our kids are for.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're not shooting?
I dig. I record dig. I ride my bike. I'm a runner, so I run a lot. It's really simple. I mean, in London, I get up in the morning. Sometimes I take the kids to school. Sometimes I don't. If I don't, then I play some records and just piddle around. And then I end up at my favorite coffee shop, record store in London. To me, it's the best record shop in all of London. The curation there is amazing. It's called Rover. It's on Dean Street. And it's
The one in Dean Street.
it's right on the side.
Yeah,
exactly.
it's still there.
Still there. And
There's the vegan place next to it
exactly.
still.
Yep. They have his coffee shop up top now, and it's like probably the best. I've tried every.
When you were in the car with my husband, did he tell you about his dad's record shop in
yeah,
London?
Exactly. It's in.
You have to go there.
It's in
Lewisham.
Lewisham.
Yeah.
Records.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's my hobby.
I love that place.
It's my hobby.
One thing that you must pack in your suitcase when you're traveling.
What's in my backpack that's a must? Like my suitcase? That's too much.
Like the one thing you can't miss, you know?
The
Like,
TMI.
fuck, I forgot.
I was about to do some TMI. Headphones.
Okay.
Headphones.
Okay, this one, it's a bit weird because you are a director as well. But what I ask to everyone is, if you were a director, who would you hire as a DP?
Ooh, I don't like that question. Put me on the spot.
That's okay. You don't have to answer because you already hired people, so it's fine. We can pass on that. What do you value in a director?
Warmth. Yeah, somebody that's warm and understanding. Somebody that's nurturing. We often think that directors are just, there to set up shots and tell us what the mise-en-scene, all of the usual stuff. But I really need somebody that's loving and warm. You know what I mean? Somebody that really cares. That's just come from my own trauma. I don't want to be yelled at. I also don't want to be micromanaged.
Yeah.
I just need care. If you care and there's a warmth and love, then you're gonna get the best out of me. That's what I require. If it's not about the image, then it's just about a friendship. Then it's a whole different set of If it's only about that, but it's a little of both, you know. But even though it might not be a friendship, a burgeoning friendship, it still should be about, you know, warmth, love, respect. Yeah.
What do you
Care.
value in your team, like for example in your key grip and your gaffer?
Oh, feedback, ideas. You know, I'm not good at directing my gaffer or key grip. I'm better at just watching them do their thing because they're artists. They're not workers. We all workers, but they're first and foremost artists. They have something to say. So I'm just curious to see what you have to say with the information that would be different from what I would say. You know. Yeah, I'm looking for input. I'm looking for feedback. Yeah, I'm looking for ideas. Participation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the compass to say yes to a project?
I need to be able to see myself in the story, and not me directly, not myself, or where's Bradford in the story, but more like where's my ability to interact with my story, with my history, with my family, with my lineage in the story. If I can see that, then I could do any film. Doesn't matter if it's science fiction, comedy, a tempo, whatever it is, I can do it as long as I can see, you know, Susie Young or Harriet Porter in there, then I know it's the right thing to do. You know how scripts are. Scripts are like, script can be bad. It can be not that good, but you give it the benefit of the doubt because you know the voice of the director is strong. And then there was like a moment in the script where you saw like, oh man, that's amazing. I could see that. I could see that because I remember this. You know, and I could bring my story to that moment. So the script for me, I used to say, oh, a good script, but it's like, when's the last time you read a really good script? It's been a minute.
1 out of 100.
Word. Even the stuff you shot, it's like, it's cool. The script is pretty good, you know, but that director's amazing. So there's a lot of that. You know what I mean? It's a lot of that.
Totally. What's your favorite part of the filmmaking process?
Prep.
Me too. Just time to talk about shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Mistakes from the early days that you would maybe advise to avoid or not advise, just like whatever mistakes that you...
Mistakes from the early days. Man, I used to have no boundaries. I used to have zero boundaries. And a lot of people got in too far. So if I had to fix that, I would have serious boundaries.
Like you were given too much, you mean? Yeah.
And now my boundaries are crazy. You know, it's really hard to get in.
Yeah, because you got hurt.
Yes. I thought something else was going on.
One of the hardest things to learn.
Period.
Like the
In
boundaries, like in life, not just on set, in fucking life, like never ending.
Boundaries. Filmmakers are needy. They need to be all up in it with you and the thing. And it's just like, before you know it, you're laying in, it's 3 a.m. and they're calling you on the phone. And you're like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I say thank God for the kids, because the kids now, it's just like after 7:30, bye-bye. Cats are like, man, I called you last night, bruh. I was sleeping, okay? Or I was snuggling with Jaja. That's my daughter. I was snuggling with Jaja. Jaja, you know what I mean? Like, you ain't, sorry.
Yeah.
Call me at 5 a.m. You know, you might catch me, but boundaries. On the weekends, nah, you want to hang out with me? You come hang out with me and my whole family. And guess what? Don't nobody care that you're a famous director. Nobody. Especially my kids. They don't even know. They're like, all right. Who is this? Uncle who? Why are we calling him Uncle? We just met him. You know?
Personal traits that you think help you the most?
Man, these are all these very self-aware. I love them because they make, I'm sensitive. I'm very sensitive. It's a superpower, you know what I mean? But all superpowers are like, they have their ups and downs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Make you more vulnerable as well.
Make you more vulnerable. For years, people, oh man, you do, you know, friends really. Especially my man Sean Peters. Shout out Sean Peters, incredible cinematographer. He usually shoots for me when I direct commercials, and he lives like a block away from me in Baltimore. We started working together. He would always say, man, you know, the thing about your work is that you're so sensitive. I see the sensitivity in your work. And I didn't understand what that meant. Since he's brought it up, I've been thinking about it, you know, and I think that's the thing that allows me to like get in there, you know. you know, I'm not afraid to have the camera that close to somebody, you know what I mean? Just because it's like, I want to feel, you know what I mean? I want to feel something. I want to I want to bear witness to something. So.
No, and that's why it's so important to be safe with your director and the things that you were saying about Ryan, for example, right?
Yes.
Because like when I completely relate to what you say as well. I'm like hypersensitive, and so from that sensibility comes the resonance, comes the empathy, comes to do something special, but it also makes you very vulnerable. And if somebody's not taking care of you and nurturing you, then you're gonna shut down your superpower. And so it's again like, how can you be there open-hearted so that it can be a channel for the best?
For the best.
But at the same time, protect yourself, because you are in, even if you have an amazing director, you're still swimming with sharks around everything else that is to make a movie, and even more if it's in Hollywood, but anywhere. So it's how do you protect the heart without doing an armor that then doesn't let anything in?
That's it.
Which is boundaries again.
That's boundaries. I mean, I'm gonna use him because he's it's like a fresh experience, because I hadn't really, I hadn't shot anything in a while, and then I decided to do Thomas Crown with Michael B. And man, that's the thing about this guy. Just like, he's so warm, he's so kind, he's so lovely. I asked him in the beginning, like, please respect these boundaries, but also please give me space to do this. And I was also able to tell him that I'm a hot mess, and you're gonna find some days you're gonna need to walk me off the edge of the cliff, and some days you're gonna need me to not be going to war with these line producers. I gave him all my weaknesses. I'm not a producer's DP, I'm a director's DP. If you think I'm gonna be in the office talking to your producers about solutions and stuff, I'm not that guy. I'm not that dude. You know what I mean? You got H.H. Cooper, he's strong AD, he'll do, you know what I mean? And he was like, I got you, and looked me in my eye and was like, I completely understand what you're saying, and I got you. And I was like, all right, we'll see. And I didn't say like, we'll see, like, I don't believe it, we'll see. It was more like, okay, we'll see. And he completely rose to the occasion. Completely.
How amazing is that?
When this man was directing, acting, producing, and writing, and dealing with me. Okay? And Jameen. This dude is unbelievable.
But how great that you can actually go to a director at the beginning of the project and be so open and vulnerable to say, okay, this is who I am with all these things and all these flaws and all this, like, this is how you navigate me. This is my instruction manual. Like, you're gonna get the best out of me, but I'm also have this. It's hard to do that. I mean, unless somebody's a friend, because you have to give them the confidence that you're going to be their right hand and you're going to solve everything, right? And if we could make a rule that you have to have this conversation before embarking on a movie, wow.
That time I took off, between basically when they see us till, I did Black News and I did 2073, but those two were like narrative pieces in a documentary. They weren't like a year-long commitment, right? Yeah. And they were more manageable. So I count them, but it's not. It was a different experience. I mean, like movie, which
more like in and out. Like,
in and out. Yeah, these were like small bites, 5 days here, 12 days here, but like a whole year.
Yeah.
From 2018 to 2025, I got fired from a movie, quit a movie, and whatever. I can't remember what else. Some other stuff got happened. I forgot. But that time off I had, it was so amazing. Like, it took. First of all, I got that taste out of my mouth. Like, I was like, I could care less if I never shoot another film. Like, thank God I'm in that zone now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was living in Baltimore, living below my means. My kids were being homeschooled. My wife and I were in a zone. And I was like, and movies are not taking me away from family. And my kids are getting this whole me without all of this, like, coming home talking for 2 hours after rap about some craziness. It was like, and I, and I got clear that, like, if I don't shoot another movie, I'm good. I've done a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. I've done a lot, and it's so, and I'm telling it to not be like, oh, I ain't shot a film, but more like when I went to Mike, that was also in the back of my mind, and he knows that too. He knows that too. It was like, he asked me about Creed, and I didn't feel like I was ready to come back. It wasn't the right move. But this, I knew. This before he even asked me, I knew. Somebody told me he was going to ask me. So when he asked me, I just said, all right, let's go. And I think I kind of shook him a little bit, because it took him a while to be like, okay, let's go. He was like, is this real? And I was like, no, bro, it's real. Like, if you want to do this together, I'm down, but
Yeah.
let's talk.
Yeah.
And it was just more one of those things where I was like, yo, bro, honestly, I didn't say this to him, but in my back of my mind, I was like, well, I'm gonna give him the terms. They weren't terms. It was just more like, hey, man, I gotta tell you like where I am. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm super raw, and these are the things that I like. I feel like I need. And he was just like, I got you. And but in the back of my head, I was like, if he's like, I can't do that. I was also kind of like, it's cool, because I don't have to. I want to do this, but I don't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas
Yeah.
before, I was like, oh man, I gotta get this film. And
Yeah.
how come they didn't ask me this? Man, I wish I. You get the. It's that thing. I'm sure you've been there even short. You get to that point where it's like, you hear about all these other films getting made, and you're just like, oh man, I would have been great if I was at that point where I was like, I didn't know what was getting made, and I could care less.
Yeah.
It's all out of my mouth. And now I'm able to come in, not looking for that either, and I'm able to, set the boundaries. It's a different thing.
Well, because now you're setting the bar, like, okay, this is the way that I can work and be happy and give my best, and this is the way that I want to work. So,
correct.
Yeah, not all the projects and not all the directors are like that, but I think it's worth it just waiting for the right thing so that you can keep in tune. And
yes.
I can't wait to see
inspired.
what you
it's different.
Together.
It's different. You're gonna be like, you shot that? It's very different.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, it's very different.
That's good. That's good too. 2 short ones. Best impact of this career in your personal life?
I get to meet wonderful people like you. People that I really share something very specific with. You know what I mean? Yeah, just the friendships. The friendships I've gotten out of this career is, I feel like I've had 3 phases of my life. I had the friends I had in Louisville, because my mom passed when I was young, so that's why I left Louisville, and that kind of like set off this whole thing with me. I had those friends, and then when I left Louisville, I didn't really loop back in. I just had a couple cats, but not really. And then I went to college, and I met like the people in my life that are like foundational. Like I'm not like even to this day, like my godparents, my kids, my best friend, the whole thing. My community. I got to have all these other like little special relationships with people that are forged around our shared expressions, our love for this art form.
And what's the worst thing, the worst impact of this career in your personal life? Or the thing you hate the most about the job?
I don't know, it's funny, it's interesting, because like, I don't know, I feel like I might have there would have been maybe a few things I would have said maybe a few years ago, but now I just have a new perspective on it. Like, I would have said, the time away from my kids, but my kids, they know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? They know that, and and like I said before, to you, I tell them like, the things that we have, the things that we're able to share and do with one another, the time we're able to spend, the quality, like it, it's not for free. So most of it is, but some of it's not for free. And I don't really, half the time I wish I didn't have to do this stuff. I wish I'd just be with you, you know what I mean? But I gotta go out and do this because it gives us this time. And they understand. So because they understand, it doesn't burden me as much anymore. And my wife, my partner, she's like, she keeps them in check. Like, she keeps them in check. Like, you think Baba likes going out and working and being away from you? He don't like that. He'd rather be right here making bread and making food and playing records and lighting incense and cleaning up and make a nice house. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I guess the thing now that really is not great is that we still haven't figured out a way to like disengage from these little phony wars that we create for ourselves in these films. It's just like conflict. It's just unnecessary, and it scars you. It takes the trust out of the process, and the process has to be all about trust. If you can't trust, then you can't be vulnerable. And if I can't be vulnerable, then I can't give you good images. And nowadays, it's not even coming from the director. It's coming from like, from the most cliche, silly places. It's like the most cliche, dysfunctional relationship on a film set is the line producer and the DP. And it's so unnecessary. Mm-hmm. But it just, people get in their ways, you know what I mean? They don't really know how to like disengage from that thing, And it goes back to that thing we were talking about earlier. I'm sure, you're gonna get a lot of feedback for this, but like, bring the actors. Okay, let's go. Oh, right. What's that thing called? A camera? Yeah, just put it wherever. Let's go. But it's not in the foreground for people. Those of us who are around that thing, because we understand, not because we're DPs per se, but because we understand that it's cinema because of persistence of vision. It's cinema because there's a spinning shutter, a registration pin, and a pull down claw, like, and a lens. Like, you know, all the great actors are like, I would say Andre Holland or Wendell Pierce or whoever. They come in and like, yo, B, what lens is that? Is that a 24? They look at where they're standing, that's a 24. They look around. You take 4 steps back.
Yeah.
Or Wendell Pierce would come to your first day scene and be like, yo, man, I'm sorry, I'm about to go crazy. You see that tape? I'm going here, then I'm gonna go 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 here, and give it back to you. Good? Like, yeah. Don't worry, I got you. Now it's like,
Yeah. Good luck.
let's go. Let's shoot the rehearsal. Let's go. And it's like, all right, it's soft. Yeah, because we didn't. You know what I mean? Oh, that was wonderful for me, but it was bad for us. What's going on? Do I need to fire your first AC? Nah, you didn't give us no rehearsal. So, because you weren't engaged in what it was going to take to make this project, which meant we were going to shoot wide open and we're going to use these lenses and we had this thing and this whole stuff is going on. Because you weren't invested. Then now you're shocked when it's soft. You're not giving, y'all don't respect this thing over here. So that's the thing I just dislike, is that this precious thing that used to be understood by all to be the thing we're all around. And it's not like, like I said, because we're DPs that we have the singular relationship with it. Everybody understood their relationship with it. I don't think that doesn't exist anymore. And I can see it too sometimes with like relationship between production designers even and DPs. That's the reason I was saying earlier, like, I'm just trying to have the production designer and me be on the same page.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to fight for windows. And I need the production designer. That's why, anyway, all the cats who I love, who I work with, I'm sure we've all worked with, who are amazing. They so collaborative, so knowledgeable, and really, really, really respect that camera like it's theirs. Well, how you shooting it though? What's the lenses you using? Let me see those lenses. You know what I mean? Like, I guess we can't use that thing. I love all that.
Yeah.
But, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, just these little wars, you gotta to get on my nerve.
Yeah.
Unnecessary.
What advice you would give to your younger self if you could go back, like Back to the Future style? My favorite movie of all times. More than Tarkovsky.
More than Tarkovsky. Back to the Future is it's nice. It's elemental. It's fundamental.
Yeah.
When I left grad school and I moved to New York, and I didn't know what was going on. Was I gonna make films or whatever? Even before that, but I always thought I'm gonna be an experimental filmmaker. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how I was gonna be able to service that, but I thought I was just gonna make me in a Bolex in solitude, making these little weird films about leaves, branches, and I love that. You can see that in some of my first student films. Me, Chad, Marcus, Camille, all the crazy people. I painted them. I did all types of weird stuff. You know what I mean? It was just like wild, and it was so dope. As much as I, again, all the things I said that I've highlighted how much I enjoy about working in, films in another kind of way. I really, and I still do. I still do my experimental films. I still very much engaged in engaging with filmmaking that way. But if I had told my younger self anything, it would be like, don't stop doing that. I'm curious what I could have done if I had just stayed the experimental filmmaker. You know what I mean? I'm kind of back at that thing now. Even the time I took off, that was like what that was really about. And I did a lot. I did many things then that I haven't had a chance to do in this version of myself where I'm taking on bigger responsibilities and bigger films and doing all of that. But I would tell that younger person, be hungry longer, go get a job at a university, make your experimental films, get your family, have these summers off, be in your camper van, ride around, make your experimental films about your kids and go back and teach your little courses. That would have been a great life. You know what I mean? I would just say, just do that, man. So just keep it low key. Because that's kind of what this moment too is like. A little bit of directing, doing my little commissions, shooting commercials and movies, but it's all kind of about saying the same thing about I like being alone with my camera and my light meter, and nobody saying anything, and just you know, it's just nothing. What's better than that? You know what I mean? Nothing better than that. So
It's funny that you call it low key because I hear you, and to me it sounds high key. It sounds high vibration.
Yo,
Sounds
yeah.
Stay
Yes.
in tune with
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Keep the vibration. Hey, you said it then. That's what I would tell myself. Keep the vibrations high.
Mm.
Keep the vibrations high. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah, keep those vibrations high.
Amazing. Well, that sounds like a good ending. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank you, everyone,
Thank y'all.
for staying a bit longer.
Cheers.